Well, hello, everyone. Good evening. Live long and prosper to everybody. How are we doing this evening? Hi, folks. It's me, Ryan Burns, DB Cooper Sleuth. And tonight, at short notice, I didn't advertise this or anything, but I just wanted to say hello. Hello to Lou. Hey, Oracle. Hello to Jay, Ed. Being rude. Hey, Bill Manning. Yes, this is the right place. Hi, Randy. Hello, everybody. Hi, Landy. How are you? Landy has her own Mini Cooper that she's making in her classroom, which is pretty cool. Hello to BBG and St. Ives. See you soon. Let's see. Halo SKG. Everybody. And Tina Mucklow, of course, is always here. One day we'll get the real Tina Mucklow on here. I can guarantee it. You'll see. You'll see, everybody. One day. One day. Now, all I want to ask her is if you knew, did you know Kenny Christensen, and how bald was he when you knew him? That's what I would like to ask. Hello, Lionheart. Hello, Packer Jack. Everybody's in here. So this is just an Ask Me Anything. I don't even know what to talk about. We're just going to talk Cooper for a little while, or talk anything. We can talk about the Titanic, or the Alamo, or World War II, or forks and utensils in the Victorian era in Belgium. We'll talk about anything. So what are we going to? Oh, Tim. Hey, Tim Wallace. Tim Wallace is doing a podcast soon, which will be fun. I'm sure you're deep into the Braden stuff, I guess, still. So, what are we going to talk about, people? Anything in particular? Any questions? I think somebody asked a question. Football questions. Do you see Lane Kiffin staying at Ole Miss long term? Yes, I do, because where's he going to go? I mean, the NFL is where he would go. Basically, the NFL is the only place that Lane would go, because hell, they're paying him $12 million a year or something, and he has his own brand here. His dog is the mascot. He's doing pretty well. Also, his son, his youngest son, is a quarterback at the high school there in Oxford. I believe he's a 10th grader, so he'll be there at least until he's done. All right. What is the velocity of an unladen swallow? Well, was it European or African, right? Okay. Well, David Wilmot, this is an easy question. What was the point of Cooper asking to be flown to Mexico City? Well, essentially, he did not know that they were ever going to find out where he jumped, okay? Or when he jumped, I suppose. Well, when and where he jumped, right? Because think about this. He had no idea that when he jumped, that the stairs were going to do that. Okay, that's a picture from the sled test, all right? That's where they took a 220-pound sled and they shoved it off the same plane, going the exact same speed, the exact same configuration, flaps, gear down, all that stuff. And it made this, basically, it acted like a trampoline or a diving board, and popped back and crashed into the top of the fuselage and shoved air down the length of the cabin, and popped the ears of the flight crew and Tina Mucklow, who were sitting in the cockpit. All of the copycats who did the same thing. Basically, essentially, if you jump off, going a certain speed at least, if you jump off the stairs of a 727, it's going to shoot air down the length of the cabin. All right. So, but Cooper asked for Mexico City because he wanted the longest length of time for them to not know he had jumped. Okay. And I believe Cooper, just my belief is, I don't know, it's strange, but it's interesting. If you look up the max distance of a 727 back then, its max distance is almost the exact same distance from Seattle to Mexico City. It's like 3,500 miles. So if Cooper had just looked that up in a book, what was the max distance? He wanted that plane to be in the air as long as possible before they knew he was out of it, right? Because that would lengthen how much time he has to escape, or how much time he has before authorities know he's on the ground somewhere. But they go, hey man, we can't even make it a fourth of that way, flying with gear down and flaps down like this. So he really messed that up. And they ended up having to go to Reno, and they were going to have to go to Yuma, Arizona after that, and then Mazatlan, Mexico after that, just to get to Mexico City. So for me, that was the point of Mexico City. Now, there are alternative theories out there about why he asked for that. There is some theory, and I'm not crazy opposed to it, that he did want to jump perhaps in Mexico. There are no federales down there, right? There's a bit more lawless, I suppose, especially in maybe in northern Mexico, maybe. And so perhaps he did want to jump in Mexico. The problem is, if once he realized that they had to refuel, now remember, one of Cooper's demands was, I want to fly flaps down, gear down, do not stop to refuel anywhere in the States. Okay, so don't refuel anywhere in America. Well, why would you say that? Why would you say don't refuel in America? Well, it's could be other people have thought that perhaps he was concerned that if they stopped anywhere in America to refuel, that would just give the FBI time to mount an attack on him, which come to find out, when they landed in Reno, the FBI were following right behind in cars, and they were there, and who knows what they would have done. Okay, but basically, so there's some thought that maybe Cooper originally wanted to jump in Mexico somewhere, but when he learned that they had to refuel in America, he goes, "Oh crap! Well, I better just get off the plane." So, and the reason that theory might have some legs is because if you look at Cooper's organization, Cooper seemed to know what he was doing. He seemed to have a good plan up until he had to jump. Then he totally turns into like he's winging it. I mean, he has this great bomb, this whole idea, all this other stuff. But then suddenly he starts kind of winging it. His drop zone is winged, and the thought might be that, so all the copycats had essentially coordinates for the pilots to fly. They knew where they wanted to jump. So perhaps Cooper did know where he wanted to jump, and perhaps he had coordinates. Perhaps he was going to give them the coordinates as they got closer to Mexico, maybe, and say, hey, okay, now I want you to fly here or there. Because some of the copycats did that. They waited until an hour or two down the road to give the pilots the exact flight degrees to follow. So perhaps that was what he was going to do. So perhaps he wasn't so aloof that he didn't know where he was going to jump. Perhaps he had a plan of where he wanted to jump. And his plan got foiled once he realized that they had to stop in America somewhere. And that would, he didn't want to take the risk of the FBI planning. I mean, because they would have 3 hours to plan, how to attack the plane, right? So there's some thought that maybe he did want to at least head that way and get further down. And look at how he's dressed. Perhaps he's not really dressed well for that weather, but in Mexico it would matter how he dresses, really. But I only like that theory a little bit. I only give it any credence because it would explain, it's the only thing I can think of to explain why he seems so aloof when it comes to his drop zone. I mean, when every other copycat seemed to know where they were going to jump or had an idea of where they wanted to jump. Yet Cooper, who is the paterfamilias of all these guys, is out to lunch. He's just winging it. I don't give a damn. I'm just going to jump out. So perhaps that really wasn't his original plan. Perhaps his original plan was to jump further south. But I don't know. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of that would explain why he's so aloof. But again, maybe he just didn't care. Maybe he was a guy like Ted Braden or somebody who was just winging it and didn't care. I was like, oh, I'll jump. I know roughly where I'm going to be, roughly where I'm going to be. I think Cooper could have known what county he was in. That's the most I'll give Cooper. I think that if he was winging it, that he knew at least he was probably in Clark County somewhere. So that's the most I'll give him. But the most common thought is that he said Mexico City because it extended the length of time. It maximized the length of time that he thought that they were going to be in the air before they realized he was gone. Okay. What else? What else do we have? If Cooper jumped over Mississippi, what are his chances of being eaten by gators? Not a lot. Mississippi, we don't have a crazy amount of, we have alligators, that's for sure, but not like Florida or somewhere. Obviously, if he landed in the Everglades in Florida, then these days he'd get attacked by a python, probably. They're overrun with pythons now. But back then, you still want to jump over Florida, that's for sure. Okay. DB Cooper was a genius. I'm not so sure about that. Jack the Ripper DNA shows it's Aaron Kosminski, but it's been dismissed. Well, it should be dismissed, right? That's the easiest thing ever. If I'm his defense attorney, Your Honor, Ms. Eddowes was a prostitute. She was a lady of the night. My client's DNA on her belongings is not evidence. It's evidence of something, but it's not particularly evidence that he killed her. Okay. So that's the easiest thing that there's. Yeah. So I don't buy that at all. The Kosminski thing, that just seems, I think solving Jack the Ripper is like, eventually we're going to get to that point with Cooper, but that seems impossible to solve. I mean, that really seems impossible considering how transient people were in London back then, sailors and all this sort of stuff. That just seems ridiculous. Do I talk to Eric Eulis about the case? I mean, Auriculus, as Jan Greider calls him. Sure. Eric's a friend. We disagree vehemently on certain things, but Eric's a friend. I have no problem with Eric, and I haven't talked to Eric in a little while. I've never really worked on anything. I've helped him out on some things. I remember literally calling him when he announced Vince Peterson, because it's almost like I think that when we were looking for titanium guys, maybe we came across Peterson, I think, but somehow like we learned very quickly that Vince was missing a finger or part of a finger. And I remember and Eric didn't know this. And I remember calling Eric and saying, hey, this guy's missing a finger. He goes, changes nothing. Changes nothing? What do you mean it changes nothing? He's missing a finger. Okay. Yeah, but I'm at least glad he's off Vincent Peterson. So his next suspect will certainly have the last name Peterson. Peterson. It'll be spelled differently. First time it was Peterson, S-O-N, then it's E-N, then I guess it'll be U-N. That's even a spelling. All right. Battlestar, you believe he jumped over Nevada? Impossible, Battlestar. Like literally impossible. Because there's no way to cause this pressure bump there. Oh, I forgot I still have that on. I'm sorry. I'm talking and forget that I had that on the whole time. But yeah, impossible. There's no way but that pressure bump for him to jump over Nevada. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, I know. Take the picture down. I'm sorry, guys. It's hard to see. So you think Uncle LD was basically involved in a drunk driving incident, and that's what his niece saw that night? Sure. Why not? It was on Thanksgiving Day, apparently. And I think that, this is a guy I remember who had multiple DUIs. And yeah, he had multiple DUIs, which was hard to get back then. He was a felon he had a felony DUI, which means he had 3 DUIs. And back then it was hard to get DUIs. And I just think that, just try to remember I think Marlo was 7 or something. When you're 7, you don't know what's going on. You don't really see, if your uncle shows up. I had an uncle who was an alcoholic, and if he had showed up to our Thanksgiving, if I had seen him on Thanksgiving when I was 7, I would not have assumed if he's bloody that he had been in a drunk driving accident, but the adults probably would have, right? So, oh God. And so I think that's what she saw. That's just my thought. That's my thought on what she saw. But again, LD is no longer the worst suspect in the world. Now that I know he had a mental illness at the time and had been in the Portland mental hospital just a month earlier, and his brother worked for Boeing. He's not the worst. Yes, Cooper was a choir boy compared to the sicko Jack the Ripper. Yeah, Jack the Ripper. It would have been wild if, I remember, didn't they try to think that, wasn't there a thought sometime for a while that Jack the Ripper was H.H. Holmes? Like that would really have made a lot of sense. But I think they knew exactly where H.H. Holmes was at the time or something. So, but that would have really made sense because that is exactly what H.H. Holmes did to people, right? And he was I guess Holmes was like a surgeon. I think Holmes was a doctor, right? Okay. Who is the current legal owner of the remaining $194,000? That would be the company I forget what they're called now. They were Royal Globe at the time. Ooh, somebody in the chat might know. They were somebody that maybe Metropolitan. I don't know what insurance, but they are an insurance. They're still around, so it would be them. Will Orville Lyons get an episode? If he was put in the public domain, he's a perfect fit in all the areas. Orville's really good. Orville's really good. I don't know. I need to make a video about him. I'm currently working on a video about James Roman, Jack Roman. By the way, I came across this picture of the Mad Dr. Roman the other day. I said, damn, that's a turkey neck. Let me find that. Yeah, look at this one. Here's our Mad Dr. Roman in like 1969. How about that? There's our astronaut with his, and you can even see his lip is weird, right? Roman's got that weird lip. Something about Roman is interesting to me. This is Roman when he was younger. There. Now, his ears stick out a little bit, but that could just be a result of his crew cut, right? He was military. Look at that lip. I mean, he's got something going on with his lip. And he got a little nose. And the sheriff's deputies, after he kills his wife, kills her lover, kills himself, they find dynamite blasting caps hidden in his home, fake degrees, police scanners and frequent things, and all kinds of crazy things. And James Roman's interesting for sure. Yes, Roman worked for NASA. He was the first astronaut who was a scientist, or was a doctor at least. And he would have been an astronaut. I mean, he passed astronaut training. He was in the same group with Michael Collins, but they said, hey, you're more important to us medically. Look, he apparently invented, I'm learning some more things about him as I'm making this video for you guys about Roman. He apparently invented these devices because he was an engineer also. So he graduated as a mechanical engineer when he came to America. He was born in France. Okay, his mother was American and his father was a Belgian scientist, or a Belgian engineer, I believe. And he came here to enlist in World War II. And after World War II, he goes and becomes a mechanical engineer. Then he goes to medical school. Then he joins the Air Force as just a medical doctor in the Air Force. Then at the age of 30, he takes flight training, which is really old to be like a new pilot, and then becomes a test pilot. He's flying 90,000 feet in the air, going Mach 2. And he invented all these like devices that astronauts used during the Gemini is what they call it, the Gemini program, and Mercury and Apollo, that monitored their vital functions. But he tested them on himself doing these things, which is pretty cool. But anyway, yeah, Roman is a odd cat for sure. Just something very sinister about that man. That's interesting. Yeah, Jude says he invented some form of oxygen pressure thing that's still used in modern spacewalks. So he was a very, very interesting guy. Okay, yeah. Lyons. Mary John said, whereabouts was Lyons based? Everywhere. He was a drifter. He had no home. Arizona, Nevada, California, Delaware. I mean, I was thinking of places that I know he lived: Texas, Mississippi, Georgia, California, Washington, Oregon, Seattle, Portland. And he lived in Seattle, Portland, and Reno, which is like ding, 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 right? Smoke jumper guy, very cagey with the FBI about what he did as a smoke jumper. He goes, I never jumped out of any planes. And I think my favorite thing about Lyons is they noticed he's limping. This is in 1984. Remember, Lyons is the guy who, when the FBI show up, he asked them, oh, is this about that hijacking? And they go like, we did not bring up the hijacking. This guy did. So why he brought that up before we even told him what we were there for? Odd. But the best thing about him is he's limping around and something's wrong with his right leg. And the FBI, they say, what's wrong with your leg there? He goes, I injured it in 71 or 72. And they go, how? He goes, I fell out of a tree. I fell out of a tree. Okay. I don't know why. Let's see. By then, Lyons is 42, I think. I think Lyons was born in 1930. I'm 42. That's my age. I'm not climbing any trees, people. Certainly not to a high enough elevation to destroy my leg if I fall out of a tree. So yeah, I don't know about all that. Yeah, the bum leg after 71 is weird. And he leaves the PNW. That's why he got turned in, is because his girlfriend was like, hey, he left in 71 or 72. She couldn't really remember, but she says he left the area. He was in Seattle, based in Seattle at the time. So, all right. Yeah, I agree. Interesting that, but wouldn't guys like Roman and Verdal have better avenues to wealth than skyjacking a plane? Yes, absolutely. But again, Roman, though, something was weird with him. They found all these fake degrees. They found all these, I think in his barn or something, they found things for forging documents. So what was this guy up to? Right. And he was apparently kind of a quack surgeon. They found where he was doing like a kidney operation on a woman, and he ended up cutting her breast off. I don't know how that works, but something was something. I don't know what his problem was, but it is interesting that he buys a 70-acre spread in Washougal, Washington in 1972. He opens up a new medical business in 72. So sudden influx of cash, he rings that bell. But his problems, though, is his ex-wife said he wasn't a smoker, but his ex-wife is odd. She seemed that when they interview his ex-wife, obviously he killed his wife he was living with at the time, but they interview his ex-wife in like 84. And he's like, oh yeah, the afternoon the day before, she claimed that she knew where he was the afternoon, the day before Thanksgiving, 13 years earlier. So how many of you remember where your significant other was, what they were doing the day before Thanksgiving in 2012? I mean, come on. That seems a little odd to me. Was Cooper wearing cologne? No, I've never seen anything about what Cooper smelled like. Never seen that. I still say left-handed. I mean, possibly. I mean, I don't know. There's really no way to know that. But again, as I've said, lefties do have that is verified that lefties do have more abstract thought. I think that they're better at, just marginally better, but they have more capability for, what's it called? Divergent thinking, I guess is the way to say it. Hetty seemed like the best hijacker. Well, he was smart enough to wear a hood, right? He was definitely the best skydiver of them all. He was an NCAA champion skydiver. Yeah, Hetty left, of all the hijackers, now I think about it. Yeah. Hetty probably pulled off the best hijacking because he jumped the gate at Reno Airport and ran onto a 727 that was unloading. I feel like Jim Brown or some famous football player or something was coming off that flight. But as everybody's coming down, as soon as everybody got done, I think he must have been watching them. There was a 727 with its stairs down, just sitting there. And he ran on, didn't need to keep the passengers in the dark. His face was covered. He never interacted with the ticket agent. He just jumped the gate and just, as I say, Leroy Jenkins, if you know that meme, he Leroy Jenkins onto that flight, ran up there with his pistol, and that was it. Didn't need passengers, nothing. And he jumps out in 20 minutes. And, if his car, I wonder if I have that picture of that car. Oh, I know it's a very old meme, Lou, but some people might not know it. But I wonder if I have that photograph of Hetty, of his car. Let me see. Now, but Hetty's undoing was that they found his car parked on the side of the road, and it had a U.S. Parachute Association bumper sticker on it. And that, not a smart move there. Do I have Hetty's? Do I have the image of Rob Hetty's car? Come on, do I surely I must. Oh man, have to find it another time. But yeah, I do have a picture of somewhere of Hetty's car for sure, and it's yikes, yikes. Oh, that's kind of foolish to do that, but that's how they caught him. And they just said, "Oh, hey, wait, there's a car sitting on the side of the road next to, I think, Lake Tahoe or one of those lakes south of Reno, and it had a U.S. Parachute Association sticker." And they just waited for him to show up, and that was it. But he would have been fine. Okay, fascinating. Triggers says, new here. Your videos have become incredibly helpful for helping me sleep. Fascinating. See, because I listen to some YouTube videos. There's a guy named John Michael Godlier. He's a scientist, and he just does videos and he just talks. I mean, that's how I fall asleep like that. How anybody can fall asleep with my babbling, I've thought about that. I'm like, I fall asleep to YouTubers, but no one could ever fall asleep to me because I just babble so much. But I guess you do. That's great. That's funny. Okay. Yes. Damn, that stinks. Yeah, I wish I could find that his little car there. But I'll have to. If I had a guess, they could talk while I looked for it. Let's see. Seiko, that's a great point there, and I agree with you. I think this is the best argument against the Mexico jump. If Cooper was planning to jump over Mexico City, why didn't he choose a flight that took off closer to Mexico? Exactly. Just hijack in San Diego or something, right? Yes. Yes, Lou. I have that picture of Roman with his flight crew of Roman. Yeah. I don't have too many pictures of him, but a few. What's fascinating is that the FBI couldn't find a picture of him for years. We have them in 1984 saying, we still can't find a picture of Roman. It's like, okay. A majority of Americans feel that JFK was murdered due to a conspiracy. Do you think that there is a prevailing sentiment that McCoy is Cooper based on the idiot Grider's nonsense? Is that where we are now? It didn't help. Grider did not help, for sure. But, if it helps somebody get into the vortex, then that's great. But no, Grider didn't help. His need to self-aggrandize. And notice he hasn't said a word about that lately. I wonder why. He was beaten as thoroughly as anybody could be beaten on that topic. He needed more time in the air. Who's that? Who needed more time in the air? I see. Maybe. Have I ever read The River of Doubt? Yes. What is that? Teddy Roosevelt and Kermit? Pretty crazy. I think a pretty crazy adventure there. I think that's what you're talking about. The River of Doubt. Isn't that the Teddy Roosevelt book? Man, where in the world is my daggum picture of Rob Hetty's car? I would really love to find that, people, for you guys. Where is that photograph? Oh, I think I may be able to find it. But no, Hetty, that's a hell of a way to go to prison. Is you park your car and you have a bumper sticker on it. Just not very good. Not very good. Well, folks. Oh, wait. Let me see. Jude may have sent it to me just now. I don't know if I could open that link. Sorry, guys. Having some trouble there. I've got it somewhere sooner. Anyway. Okay. Let's see. Have I covered Frank Marco Sibley, the hijacker? No, I have not. But Sibley, John Detler, our friend, was very involved in the Sibley hijacking. Sibley was a 727 pilot. So if Sibley was taller, it could be a Cooper suspect, honestly. The funniest way I've seen someone try to get out of jury duty. I have to think about that. Grider helped. I found your videos thanks to Dan. Well, that's great. That was my best video. That was my best video, but yeah, that's tough. Let me see. If I have, I would love to find that photograph of that car. Yeah, I think one of my favorite things about Hetty is I think somebody stepped on a skunk during the middle of one of the agents. That might have been McCoy's hijacking, but in one of those hijackings, somebody stepped on a skunk, which I thought was pretty funny. No, it's not that one. Those hijackings, Hetty was the same day, I think. Oh, don't quote me on that. Hetty might have been the same day. I think Hetty was the same day as maybe the same day as the Skies Belong to Us hijacking with Kathy Kirko. Yeah, that was the same day. So they had multiple hijackings for that. Man, oh man. Do I really not have that? That really stinks that I don't have that. Oh well. Okay, folks, let's get back to it. Okay. What are we talking about, people? I'm heading to jury duty Monday. Hey, Ryan, if we had to agree on Cooper's profile facts, was he 100% military background, 40 plus years of age, and he had a grudge? The grudge, everybody's got a grudge. That just seems, I don't know what that means. I have a grudge. Could just be a cool line, right? But the reason I like Cooper being over 40 for sure is Hal Williams. So Hal Williams is the only person who had some training who interacted with Cooper. Okay. It has been confirmed that Northwest Orient was doing the hijacker profile. Now, you can't find that anywhere. I have tried to find it. It was they had a 10-point thing that they trained people on. Apparently, it's still classified, I guess. But the FAA trained people back then because they said, look, we don't want to, do all this stuff, pay all this security. We'll just have our gate agents be security guards and profile people. And there's some crazy numbers that they put up. Profiling led to 450 arrests in 71 alone. They confiscated 700 guns just by profiling people at the airports. And as I posted on the Facebook group, McNally had 9 guys pulled out of his line at the airport to get extra screening to go through basically to go through a metal detector back then, you had to have fit a profile. The ticket agent would have looked at you and said, "Oh, something's weird about you. We don't like your face or something, right? Or you triggered them somehow by doing whatever you were doing." And so Mac had a submachine gun and a pistol on him and just casually watched as 9 other guys in his line, had to deal with that. I think I have this. Let me see if I have a list here. I was doing an article in my book about the security stuff they were dealing with. I wonder if I have that where I can read to you some of the things that they were doing, some of the ideas that they had. They had all these wild ideas. Yeah, okay. So basically the ideas that the FAA had, that people had for airport security back then are pretty funny. Some of them included, let's see, they wanted arming flight attendants with pistols, training stewardesses in karate and judo, fingerprinting or photographing all passengers as they boarded, which go through airport security now and you will get photographed. Issuing photo ID credentials to frequent and known customers, which I guess that's kind of what we have now. I'm a TSA pre-check person. But it said that photographing and fingerprinting was ruled out as being ineffective in deterring hijacking. It says, after all, it was public knowledge that less than 10% of hijackers remained unidentified. Clearly, identification was not feared until the extortionist hijackers, right? That's the difference. Let's see. One of the suggestions was that a hypodermic be installed in each airline seat and filled with poison or a drug which would immediately render the recipient unconscious. By pressing the proper seat button in the cockpit, The pilot could inject the hijacker, making the threat. Such a system might well make a passenger reluctant to fasten his seatbelt snugly. Yeah, no kidding. Another suggestion advanced was to have passengers strip down to the buff in dressing rooms and don overalls for the flight. Okay. A rather more severe idea would have equipped each airline seat with manacles and leg irons. These would automatically lock in place when the passenger sat down and placed his arms as instructed on the seat rests. Okay. Apparently, there is an All in the Family episode where they have Archie Bunker giving each passenger a gun as they boarded the flight, or maybe that was his suggestion at least. A bulletproof, inaccessible pilot's compartment was a suggestion that actually got to a rulemaking stage. I think one of my favorite things that they actually were going to do was they were going to build a fake airline or a fake airport. And like Congress actually budgeted this. There were so many hijackers going to Cuba that they were going to build an exact replica of the Havana airport that was just like a soundstage, like in Hollywood. And when they landed there, passengers, they would have guards dressed as Cubans, or FBI dressed as Cubans or whatever, right? So that was that actually made it to the budgeting phase, but they never actually did it. Okay. Where are my comments? There we go. This is starting to sound like a Ryanair flight. Oh, are you in Europe, Lou? Not many people know about Ryanair. But anyway, so the reason why I mentioned the age thing, okay, let me go back to Hal Williams, okay? So Hal was trained a little bit in these tests, and Hal was 39 years old. Hal said that he noticed Cooper. Now, Cooper just didn't trigger him, but he did notice Cooper standing off to the side, which kind of was a trigger. So maybe that's what triggered him a little bit. But we don't know all their triggers, but the ones we do know were like standing off to the side, standing near a column or next to a wall, going around shops and not purchasing anything. One of them was appearing small and unathletic, was supposed to trigger extra attention, not like being drawn out of line, but extra looking at that guy. Being dressed not for the destination. So obviously, I think about Richard LaPointe boarded his plane in cowboy boots and jeans and a top. He wasn't really dressed for flying to Colorado. But actually, but anyway, Hal Williams, back to Hal Williams. Hal was 39 years old, was looking at Cooper a little bit, and came face to face with Cooper when Cooper had to give him his ticket, his boarding pass or whatever, right? So Hal estimated Cooper to be 50 years old. So whatever age you are, try to think of estimating somebody to be 11 years older than you, who's actually younger than you. That seems kind of unlikely, doesn't it? I'm 42, I guess. Am I 42? I'm 42 right now. It's very unlikely that I would estimate somebody to be 53 who was in their 30s, who was younger than me. So that's kind of what I think, is that if Hal Williams thought the guy was 50, then he's probably older than Hal Williams, at least older than Hal Williams. I don't know how much older, but he's at least older than Hal Williams. Okay. So that's what I think. I think that he is a little older. I do think Cooper's in his 40s. So that's what I think. Could have been a lizard person who changed how he looks. All right. You have to drive 2 hours to, federal grand jury or federal jury duty. You have to drive 2 hours to your federal courthouse. That stinks. Yeah. Federal jury duty doesn't happen too much. Ryan, if DB Cooper kept a memento of his heist, what would you think it would be? I guess his ticket, right? I mean, if you're going to keep something foolishly, you keep your ticket. I don't know what else he would have kept. Other than, I don't know what he could have kept as a memento. I mean, it keeps the money. You keep one of your 20s and put it in a book or something. I remember that when we were looking into Verdal, when we learned that Verdal's home at the time was still in the possession of the family. And that was one of the that was one of the neat things about Verdal is very few suspects who aren't promoted by the family originally are willing to really help out investigators. But the Verdal clan is cool with they were like, okay, well, we could kind of see him doing that. So when we learned that Verdal's home they lived in at the time that he built himself, actually built it himself and designed it, we learned that the family still owned that house. We were like, oh, wow, maybe his books and stuff are still there. And so we wanted to go up there and just go through his books and things and shake out all the things and see if the 20 falls out or see if there's something that our eyes, like maybe the family wouldn't connect to Cooper, but Cooperites might connect something that they see to Cooper. But it turns out all his clothes and all his books and everything are long gone. So there was really no need for that. Yeah, I agree. The Milton Verdal seemed like a good suspect on paper, but what motive would he had to risk his life for money? Yeah, I do think he was financially okay. Randy says, didn't McCoy's witnesses think he was 5'5"? No, that's just one. Bizarre. I don't know how. Most of McCoy's people got his height right. But for some reason, it almost makes me think it's a typo or something because that one of the stewardesses says 5'5", and it's like, how would you think he was 5'5"? I mean, that is a small man, be 5'5". Okay. Apparently, Larry Carr told Bruce Smith they had 66 sets of fingerprints backed by Himmelsbach. The fingerprints, the thing to remember about the fingerprints, though, is that it's not just, that's the fingerprint, that's the Norjack file of fingerprints, which includes the prank letters or they lifted fingerprints from the letters that were sent in. So it's a accumulation. The only fingerprints that are Cooper prints that they feel somewhat confident in are 11 partial prints of his fingertips from his seat and a palm print from where he pushed down. One witness described Cooper as short too, but not anybody who saw him standing. I mean, that's the key. We have to remember about Cooper is the guy was slouching the whole time. So anybody who saw him sitting probably is going to think he's smaller than he was because everyone said he was just slouching in his seat. Tina said what's that line? I think Tina said he was hunched over or something like that. She said the entire time the hijacker was slumped over in his chair. Let me try to find that for you guys. She definitely said that somewhere that he was slumped over in his seat. Let me find that. Okay. Oh, man. Where is it? That might be on the desktop, actually. Let me find that. But yeah, it's an interesting document because it's Tina basically saying that he was slumping in his chair the entire time and hey, get up, Is this it? This might be it. Here it is. She says she advised that during the hijacking, the unsub, that would be Cooper, did not look directly at her, nor did he sit straight up in his seat. At all times, the unsub was bending over. She advised that the angle of the head in the photograph was similar to the angle in which she saw unsub. That's actually a photograph we're talking about. It's a photograph of a guy out of Ottawa who I've FOIA'd for the photograph, and we'll see. I don't know who the guy is, but it's some guy out of Ottawa. And Tina said she got a weird feeling when she saw the photograph. So don't know what that means, but yeah, so he was at all times slumped over. So, I mean, again, if you're slumping in your seat and people only see you when you're sitting, they're going to think you're smaller. Yet every single witness who saw Cooper standing it went as high as 6 feet, except for Dennis Lisney, who I think Lisney went Yeah, Lisney went 5'10" or 5'11". So yeah, every single eyewitness who saw Cooper standing, the lowest they, or all of them went at least as high as 5'11" at some point. Okay, so I mean, honestly, that should tell you something, right? What happened to Memory Man? Have you met him? You mean Tim Collins? Because I'm the memory man, according to Bill Mitchell. So Bill calls me these days. But I think you mean the memory man, Tim Collins from the HBO show. Now that guy that's the Dwayne Weber guy. He is not in the vortex. He was on the drop zone for a while. But good question, James. What weight do you give Robert Gregory's overall description of Cooper? Boy, oh boy. I don't know, because part of me wants to give him a lot of weight because he's the only person who described Cooper's suit as being anything other than black, except for Tina Mucklow. And remember, Tina Mucklow is by far our best person for his clothing, at least. Because what is she doing the whole time? She says she's not looking at the guy for 5 hours or whatever. She's probably looking down. She's probably looking at his pants, looking at his clothes. She said his suit was a dark brown with a thin black stripe on it. Was his suit. Now, he had an overcoat on over this, but most of the passengers did not see the overcoat. But Gregory says that Cooper was wearing a russet-colored jacket. And when the FBI come to his paint store the next day, he gives them a paint swatch, which is in the FBI files. He says, oh, this is what the suit looked like. But what's interesting is Gregory goes into great detail talking about, listen to Gregory's, let's listen to Gregory's description. This is like, now remember, this guy's 71 years old, not wearing glasses. Maybe he's got amazing vision, but he is 71 years old. He's the oldest passenger on the plane. Says he only saw Cooper twice. His hair, he says, jet black, wavy, marcelled, greasy patent leather sheen, combed back at slight angle to the right, slight part on left, combed close to the head. For clothing, he has reddish brown suit with wide lapels. Color was unusual, more of a russet color. Light or neutral colored shirt, contrasting necktie, medium to dark color. Other items of clothing unknown. What's interesting about that, though, what is he leaving off, people? He's leaving off the overcoat. So he's seeing, again, if you're wearing an overcoat, I suppose if you're sitting a certain way, you could probably see the suit underneath it. But why would he not mention the overcoat? He mentions a off-color shirt, red jacket, all this other stuff. So why would he forget about the overcoat? That's kind of weird. I don't know. But I tend to give him credit because he's the only one who matches Tina's recollection of his suit being a different color. But how much would Gregory have seen his suit? You think Gregory would have mentioned the black overcoat or something, right? But he doesn't. So I don't know. It kind of is odd to me that he would forget that. But Gregory is consistent with, when we look at the suspects who Gregory liked, it's consistent with suspects that the stewardesses and them liked, right? So, again, Cooper's got certain features. If you look at the people, if we just look at the people who they liked to a degree, look at them, right? It got kind of like narrowy faces, kind of pointed chins, and kind of beak-looking noses. There is some consistency with Cooper suspects. Kind of narrow face, weird lower lip, beakish sort of nose, and kind of a broad forehead. That's not all we got, really. So, but I don't know. Gregory, part of me thinks, I want to ask Larry Carr if he's ever encountered a Robert Gregory. Gregory seems like a real tryhard, honestly. He's giving them a paint swatch of what the jacket looked like. He's cutting out National Geographic pictures. I actually downloaded that National Geographic magazine because I wanted to see what he was talking about. He's like, he's cutting out pictures of Mexicans from a National Geographic magazine and sending them into the FBI saying his cheeks looked like this, all this other stuff. Yeah, I mean, if he wasn't, yeah, he did own a paint store, so maybe he had an eye for color. I totally agree with that, Randy. That's exactly right. But it's weird that he would be able to notice Cooper's suit jacket underneath his overcoat to that degree. Yet he misses other things. He says he didn't know if Cooper had any luggage with him, which he didn't notice the briefcase. He's definitely a better witness than George Labissiere, who I do believe was drunk. If you read George Labissiere, now, yeah, Gregory says Cooper was 35. Well, Gregory's 71, so I think everybody looks younger than, when you're 71, maybe everybody looks young, right? Didn't Cooper dress in an old-fashioned style? His tie was old-fashioned. We don't know nobody said his suit was frumpy or out of fashion or anything. All we have is Bill saying the guy looked like a geek and saying that his tie was out of fashion. That is 100% correct for the time period. I mean, if you look at the passengers coming off the plane, most of them are wearing ties, and they're the big, broad 70s ties. So his tie was definitely unfashionable. Yeah, Gregory, he said David Gregory. Robert Gregory was his name. Gregory was the closest passenger to Cooper when they moved the passengers forward. He also looked at Cooper when he was told not to. He knew there was a reason to look, I guess. Yeah, and he went into the bathroom. He must have seen Cooper. Gregory says he saw Cooper without his sunglasses, which I believe Gregory must have gone to the bathroom. Well, see, I don't know. I'm pretty sure Gregory looked at Cooper when he was getting his carry-on or whatever, as they were told to stand up and could leave the plane. I feel like he looked back and saw Cooper at that point. And he also says he saw him on a trip to the bathroom. But I think it's Gregory who says that, yeah, it says at one point he rose to go to the bathroom and started toward the one on the starboard side of the plane, but the stewardess above told him to use the one on the port side, which he did. That's why it's weird for Gregory to give a description of his eyes. I don't know when he would have seen Cooper's eyes. And I mean, I just don't know at what time that would have been. I mean, I guess he could have, but he gave a description of his eyes. So, but again, maybe Gregory was the most try-hardy guy ever, or maybe he had a great eye for these things. Again, some people have great memories. So, but he is the only person who says Cooper had marcelled hair. So, whatever that means. But Hank Hal Williams said Cooper's hair did have some kink in it, like some waviness to it. So, yeah, it definitely wasn't wearing a wig. If anybody's wondering if he's wearing a wig or a toupee, Cooper had a bald spot like I do. Or he was slightly balding, they said. And I don't know any toupees that will give you a receding hairline and bald spots. Yes, the only time I would have seen Cooper's eyes was while they were doing drink service. Perhaps an old man, perhaps while they were doing drink service, he got up and went to the bathroom at that point as well. So maybe he would have seen Cooper at that time. Somebody asked about Cooper spilling his drink. What was that question? Let's see. Didn't Cooper bump into Flo coming out of the bathroom? It's hard to say. Again, I don't know why this stuff is classified. I don't know why they freaking redacted this stuff, but apparently there were some things that the FBI learned during the Jack Kofel grift that they in 77 or 78 that they wanted to verify or figure out because they were kind of mad at the stewardesses for talking to the people, for the Kofel people. And they kind of threatened them. They low-key threatened the stewardesses. They said, hey, we can't tell you who to talk to or who to enter a business deal into, because they were going to pay Flo $5,000 to fly out to LA and be a part of some documentary or something. But yeah, anyway, where was I going with that? Oh yeah. the Kofel grift. So in the Kofel grift, there's something about Cooper coming out of the bathroom and hitting either Tina or somebody with the door. It wouldn't have been Tina though, because Tina said that by the time that she came back on the plane with the money, Cooper was back in his seat, because Cooper goes to the bathroom right before Tina goes to get the money. Cooper says, "Hey, go get the money. I'm gonna go to the bathroom, and I'll be back." And she said by the time she came back, he was already in his seat, like looking at her drag the money bag down the aisle. So Flo was told to go stand by the 15th row to not let any passengers come back farther than that. So I don't think anybody hit Cooper with the door. Did I ever figure out who the LA suspect was? Nope. The LA suspect, that dude is all over the place in the 302s, and I have no idea who he is. He must still be alive, or maybe they're just being lazy redacting his name. I don't know. Okay. Somebody mentioned Cooper spilling his drink. What was that question, though? I don't know. Somebody asked about, have I seen the Cooper partials, Ryan? No. No, they're not going to put that in the 302s. They will put a dead person's fingerprints in there. Like you can see Captain Scott's fingerprints in the 302s, because obviously they had to get fingerprints for exclusionary purposes from all the passengers and from the flight crew and the cabin crew. Okay. Wouldn't Cooper being slumped over with Bill not seeing his head over Tina's indicate that Cooper was over 5'8" due to her height? That would go against Braden. I don't know about that. Not sure. Okay. I would be the world's worst witness at guessing somebody's height. The majority of people, there's a book about eyewitness descriptions that I've kind of been going through recently. That's like the biggest study ever of eyewitness descriptions. And I think the number was like 70% of people will get within 2 inches. So why do you think Robert Gregory was a confidential witness when the other eyewitnesses weren't? What do you mean by that, Mary? I don't know what you mean by a confidential witness. I don't know what you mean by that. I've never seen that. Just tell me. Okay. Why did the FBI like the LA suspect so much? I don't know. It's so heavily redacted. It's a pain in the ass, you know. Is there any part of the case that you want to learn more about? It seems you have an encyclopedic knowledge of the case. I lack a lot of understanding with Tina Barr. I don't understand the dredging stuff. I mean, I understand the dredging stuff, but like my eyes kind of go cross when people start talking about the soil layers and things like that. I kind of get mixed up on that. I do need to look, but I just hate Tina Barr so much because I don't think Tina Barr helps. Like, how does Tina Barr help at all? I mean, it's not going to help us find Cooper, and it doesn't indicate that he died that night. So I don't know why Tina Barr is honestly a big deal. In fact, the only thing that Tina Barr is evidence of, and this is what I used to argue with Eric about. Eric is obsessed with Tina Barr. I said, man, the only thing Tina Barr is evidence of is that is DB Cooper's money. Like, that's the only evidentiary value it has. It says Gregory's names and details are always redacted. Not always, Mary. Not always. I have seen Gregory's name not redacted in the files. Absolutely. They just started unredacting Cord Spreckle. So, and he died. No, but I have totally seen Gregory's name not be redacted before in the 302s. Lebissonier's name is still redacted. So I don't know why. Hell, come to think of it, I've seen Gregory's name unredacted, and I've seen Spreckle's name has lately been unredacted, but I did send them a thing about a month ago. We'll see if it helps. I did send them the Social Security death index files for Gregory, Lebissoniere, Spreckle, saying, look, hey, if you stop redacting these people, right? Mary says, my point is that they use the confidential witness code every time they do redact Gregory. Did they not do that for like Lebissoniere, Mary? I mean, or for, if you find Bill Mitchell, do they not use confidential witnesses code for Bill Mitchell? Because Bill's redacted, obviously. He's still alive. Let's see. DB Cooper and Tina were together for 45 minutes when the plane landed for refueling. Was she ever asked exactly what they discussed? Well, Tina was busy at that point. When Tina would have talked to Cooper would have been the 2 hours they had together as they circled Seattle. Mary says not for the other witnesses. I don't know. Okay, interesting. I don't know why Gregory would have that. I have no idea. I mean, I don't know why he would have that. That's a good question. I've never noticed that, Mary. Good. Something to look into. But no, was she ever asked what they discussed? Yeah, I mean, she said they discussed smoking. And I mean, if you watched my video, DB Cooper's favorite hostage, I tried my best to replicate what they would have discussed, because they discussed Minnesota. She said they discussed how she's supposed to handle hijackings. I mean, Tina seems a little awkward at times, but she was busy while they were on the ground in Seattle. She was on the phone the whole time, being the intermediary between the cockpit and Cooper, and also talking to Alice and Flo, who are back there messing around sometimes. And she was back and forth getting the meals and the parachutes and all that stuff. So she was kind of busy. Bruce Smith mentioned that they had some fun and she could probably be protecting his identity. I don't buy that for a second. That's Bruce. Like I said, Bruce did amazing work during the Dark Ages. Bruce is a BC. Bruce is like Herodotus. Okay, he is a BC, or I call it before Foya historian. Myself and others are AD historians. Like, I mean, the FBI files have really changed everything. And it's just like, you don't dismiss Herodotus, you know, he gets things right. Like, what is it? Herodotus said that there were 300 people. Wasn't it Herodotus who wrote that there were only 312 Greeks killed in the Battle of Marathon or something like that? And that just sounded like a preposterous number. It sounded like, oh, you're a Greek. You're just stumping for the home team. You don't want the home team. It's like, oh, we beat them 85-0, you know. But then they found a mass grave at Marathon that had like 305 skeletons in it or something like that. So, but anyway, yeah, no, Bruce was having to rely on pre-Foya stuff. Yeah, right. I mean, Herodotus could only go with Herodotus could only go with what he was told, and Bruce could only go with what he was told, or what was previously written about Cooper. And there is a particularly nasty Hustler article that, again, is a Hustler article that's part of the Jack Kofel grip, which talks about Cooper and Tina, you know, Cooper slapping her ass and all this other stuff, and just kind of nasty Hustler stuff. And I think that's where Bruce got the idea that Tina was handsy with Cooper or something. And they asked that too. It's redacted. But I think we figured out maybe the closest thing. I think me and Chris Brower may have figured out what that redaction might have been. Remember, the FBI went to Tina and Flo and said, hey, all this Kofel grift stuff, what's true and what's not? Did he touch you inappropriately? And there's a line in there that's redacted, but she says something like, that the redaction reads like it could say, there was never a time where he could have grabbed my butt, essentially. I think that's kind of the gist of it. She's like, I would never, there's the only time I ever would have gotten up when he could have done that was at this point, and he didn't do that. So I think that's what the gist of that highly redacted 302 is. If you can read between the lines of what they're asking and what her response is, it's like he didn't have a chance to do this to me. Bruce does become a bit odd around anything Tina. I love Uncle Bruce, but yeah, he likes Tina. No, I mean, we can't split that melon anyway, other than to admit that. Okay. Do I think Cooper was married, divorced, always single? Let's go through. Well, I mean, I guess the copycats aren't always great because they're young, but let's see. Melvin Fisher was married. Hahnemann, I believe is how you say that. I've been saying Heinemann. Hahnemann was separated. Well, married, but was never around. So I guess separated. McCoy was married, but the marriage wasn't great. Mac was married, but was separated. LaPointe was single. And Hetty was single, I guess. But they were younger guys. I mean, Hetty was 22 and LaPointe's 21. So, but I would say Cooper's separated. I mean, I don't, my guess. I feel like he was probably separated or single. But I mean, there's no way of knowing that. That's funny, Lou. Lou says, my favorite Hustler fact is when they offered to publish the Unabomber Manifesto, the Unabomber himself said that he reserved the right to continue bombing if they did. That's pretty funny. Randy says, Bruce should remote view Skip Hall. JP says, do you think you could get Tina for an interview? Yes. Call me crazy, but I do. I do think that I could get Tina for an interview. I'm a different type of person than she is generally dealt with in the vortex. Mostly. Look, I mean, generally, if you are a respectable, I mean, I think a lot of our ideas that the flight crew and things are cagey comes from Bruce, because because they were cagey with Bruce doesn't mean we've talked to these people. I mean, I've talked to some of them. Can't say who, but some of them, it's a secret for the book. But I mean, there's people out there who talk to these people. I have not, well, I've got some Tina information, I'll say that. But I think I can get Tina, yeah, eventually. I can definitely get Bill Mitchell on here. But I need to ask Mac to come on here for you guys. Hetty I think Hetty is not averse to the vortex. Hetty is our guy who is trying to get, we're trying to get Hetty for CooperCon. Will I autograph my book with a dinosaur when it comes out? Which dinosaur would you like me to draw? An Ankylosaurus with its tail club? A Mosasaur? I can't really draw a fish. A T-Rex? Okay. Let's see. Please have Mac on. Yes, I'll try. Triceratops. By the way, the Colorado Rockies mascot is a Triceratops, for those who don't know. Because when they were digging around for Coors Field, they found a Triceratops skull, which is kind of neat. Triceratops and his best friend, the T-Rex. Okay. Yes, Bruce did interview Hetty. Like, Hetty came to the Cooper Symposium back in 2013. So Hetty's definitely not. Hetty's the first copycat who got involved in Cooper. Of course, Mac got involved in it, which was amazing. I mean, that was just, gosh, if you weren't at CooperCon in 2022, or 23, you really missed out on hanging out with Mac Nally, because Mac is about as cool as you can get for a guy. Mac is just wonderful. I wonder if I have that pic on my phone. I wonder if I could have that photograph of Bill and Mac. There's a photograph that I really love a lot of Bill and Mac. That's really great. Let me try to find that. Nicole Legg took this photograph, and I just think there it is. Yeah, I think it's really cool. For those who haven't seen it, because Bill was fascinated with Mac. Bill really was interested. I mean, they sat next to each other and had beers. But Bill was really intrigued by meeting his almost a proxy, if you will, for Cooper himself. All right. Let me get that photograph here. There it is. Here's this picture of Mac talking to Bill Mitchell. Hello, there we go. There we go. Pretty neat. And what they were discussing in that photograph there is basically Bill was asking Mac, what do you, I'm going to talk about you on stage here in a second. Is that okay? And Mac said, sure, of course. And the reason that Bill was asking him that is because there's Tom Kay and Mark Meltzer in the background. It looks like Big Ed there too. Ed, you're being rude. Looks like Ed there too. But anyway, great photograph of those two guys. But anyway, Bill got on stage and wanted to talk about how it wasn't a victimless crime. Yeah, it is. There it is. Yep. Bill wanted to say it's not a victimless crime. He said, look at Mac. Okay. Mac spent 38 years in prison because of DB Cooper. And of course, Mac's retort is, well, if it wasn't that, it would have been something else. Which is probably true. Remember, Mac was casing a Brinks truck. So I think Mac would have been shot by a security guard, or definitely would end up in prison. I mean, Mac was a legitimate criminal. And again, I don't know of any copycat that was as calm as Mac was. Mac is our calmest copycat. He got pissed a few times. I mean, but yeah, having a Cadillac ram your 727 would piss me off too. But Mac was very chilled out because it wasn't his first crime, I think. And I don't know if that tells us about Cooper, but I mean, it's one thing to be cool and calm on a military operation, and another to be cool and calm when you're committing a crime against civilians, if that makes sense. And like, look at McCoy is a good example. McCoy was a Green Beret. Okay. McCoy was a legitimate military badass. All right. Fearless. He won a Distinguished Flying Cross McCoy would jump in his chopper and just go on strafing missions against the Viet Cong and stuff on his own, just for fun, essentially. He rescued a bunch of ARVN soldiers, which is beautiful, by himself. He heard that like some of the ARVN troops, which are the Army of Vietnam, which is our South Vietnamese allies, for those who don't know. He learned that a bunch of ARVN troops were pinned down somewhere. He just overheard on the radio. And nobody was going to their assistance. They were like, hey, and McCoy just said, I'll go. And McCoy just jumped in his chopper and went and rescued these people, just shot the shit out of, with his own, shot the hell out of these guys and rescued these ARVN guys and got a huge medal for it. I mean, he was a badass. Yet the man is like panicked during his own hijacking. So this guy had no problem facing death and things militarily, but hurting civilians, inconveniencing civilians was where he kind of drew the line. I feel like it made him uncomfortable. Clearly, he was not used to doing that. And he had a clean record before that. He was not a criminal. McCoy just had some mental issues at the time. Well, okay. Have I met Marla Cooper? Yes, I have. I talk to Marla not frequently, but I do talk to Marla. It puzzles me how one can remember their uncle's conversations when she was 8 years old. I mean, look, false memories are. There was a fascinating thing I learned recently about memories. There was a study done that talked about 9/11. Because obviously, what is the most, in our lifetimes of my generation, there's nothing, it's Pearl Harbor, right? Of course, it was Pearl Harbor. Then in the 60s, it was Kennedy being shot. Then in the 80s, people remembered Challenger. Then for my generation, it's 9/11, And so it's like this singular event, right? And psychologists knew this was going to be like a pivotal event. Okay, so they interviewed, I think they interviewed like 1,000 people, like a week after 9/11. And they asked them, where were you? What were you doing? Yada, yada, yada. Then they interviewed them a year later, the same people. Then they interviewed them 10 years later and said, what were you doing on 9/11? Da, 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 da. And like their stories changed dramatically within the first year, but then they remained consistent. So basically, where they said they were a week after the hijacking was very different a lot of times than what they said 1 year after. But then what they said 10 years after was consistent with what they said a year after. So basically, your false memories are going to stabilize within a year. And this was a huge landmark psychological study. So that is why, like in my book, I made a very conscious decision to go with a witness's earliest statement. And it sounds terrible, but Tina Mucklow could tell me something that contradicted what she said in her 302, and I would go with the 302 in my book, because what you tell someone a day or a week after an event is almost certainly going to be better than a year later or 10 years later or 50 years later, right? So if a witness has a later statement that contradicts their earlier statement, I just made a conscious effort to go with their earliest statement. And in the book, if we had contradictions between the witnesses from that day, then I went with the witness who would have had more of a reason to remember it. So for example, I prioritized stewardesses above passengers' memory, right? So it's why, to me, it's almost how you get the sketches, right? These are different people, folks. Now, these are different human beings. I see at least 3 different human beings in the sketches, right? Yet, we've got Tina Mucklow saying that all of them look like Cooper when she is shown the sketch. Except the hoodlum there at the bottom left. She didn't like the hoodlum, but that's the only one she didn't like. The hoodlum wasn't received well. They thought he looked too ugly and a little too mean. But those are different people. So how is it that an eyewitness can say that all these look like Cooper? Well, because your memory changes. That's why hate on me. I don't give a damn. I've just come to that realization about the Bing sketch. It's like, look, I know he looks like an alien. I get it. He looks weird. But by God, Roy Rose did not invent this person. The stewardesses told him to draw this person. The stewardesses agreed that this looked like Cooper. Tina says looks 100% like him. This is days after the hijacking. Days. All right. Now ignore his eyes. Like I said, I don't even like looking at I don't like looking at Bing with eyes, because Bing with eyes is garbage. I can't imagine that anybody saw his eyes good enough to know that. But this is the one, though, that the stewardesses said looks like Cooper. 100% like him. Flo says likes the drawing very much. Alice says, can't improve it. Nothing to do to improve it. Well, no shit, because Roy Rose drew it in front of them. So if it needed improvement, they would have told him to change something. So Roy Rose did not invent that little weird little nose. He didn't invent the head shape. Didn't invent his hairline. Okay, that's not an artist's interpretation. That is what the stewardesses told him to draw in front of him. Okay, so kill me for saying that I trust that more than the Carrie sketch. Yes, they also said this sketch. Yeah, Flo says Cooper would be easily recognized from this sketch. Now, Flo says that in January of 73. Tina says, this is as close as you could get to Cooper. Tina says that in March of 73. Well, I mean, different guy than this dude. Those are different people, right? I mean, these are different people. So if they're different people, and the stewardess says, this looks like Cooper days after the hijacking, and then she says, this looks like Cooper over a year after the hijacking, what do? You go with the earliest one, right? It's not complicated. I find no complications these days. Like, people can say, oh, you're being wishy-washy because you used to like Comp B. Yeah, I liked this one. I said, okay, well, this must be it, because I thought, and I think the FBI thought, that Flo did not like this sketch. But no, that is not right. When Flo said she didn't like the sketch and it looked like shit, she's talking about this dude, Rico Suave, right? So for a long time in the vortex, we thought Flo saying looks like shit was this. But it wasn't. It was this. Flo says likes drawing very much for this. Okay, so this and this. Different people. Which one do you go with? I go with the one closest to the date. I mean, how is this complicated? It's funny, I only get pushed back on that from people who have suspects who would look more like this guy than this guy. Only pushback you get because it's common sense. Is it not, people? I mean, is it not common sense that your memory is going to be better? That a sketch drawn while the women are sitting there 2 days later is better than this, which wasn't drawn from life? No stewardess sat there and helped them draw this. This is an identikit. Okay, that's not, okay. And yeah, they said it's good. The FBI said this is the sketch we're going to use. Okay. But you go with the earliest memory. This is not complicated. Now that we know that Flo, who I think is the best witness, liked the Bing sketch, it's simple. Erica says the favorite is the one that I made. Well, I made a couple for fun. Not sure which one you mean, but like I said, my latest one, I guess this might have been the one that I made. Yeah, I guess. Because like I said, I mean, again, with Cooper, we're looking for a guy who has the little beakish little nose, the beakish nose, like John List, like Alan Cooper, like Catalano, like, who were the other people that they liked? John List. Okay, you got to have the pouty lip, got to have the pointed chin. Look, there's a 302 where Flo wants freaking so look at the Bing sketches, right? So they did, when they made the Bing, I call Bing the one with the eyes. When they made Bing with eyes, they widened his face a little bit. You can see that, right? They widened his face, widened his chin. The stewardesses didn't like that. Flo says his chin, I think Flo and Alice Hancock say his chin should be pointier than that. So look, man, if you have some block-headed suspect, try again. If your suspect has a square jaw, try again. Okay, Cooper's chin was pointy. They literally say pointy. English, people, read. Okay. Why is Flo a better witness than Tina? Because, remember what I just posted there, right? Tina says Cooper did not look directly at her. Okay. Tina says she never saw Cooper's face. Let me try to find that, which it just seems like that seems ridiculous. But again, having done law enforcement stuff when I was a DA, if you're being robbed, you are going to be advised to not look at the perp. If you're being robbed at gunpoint, don't look at them. Look down. Look to the side. Hand them your wallet or whatever. Don't look at them. Don't make eye contact because that can only antagonize them. So I think that that's what Tina was after. But look at this one. Tina Mucklow. She pointed out that during her contact with the unsub, he, for the most part, was seated on her side so that she only saw his profile. She never observed him from straight ahead, and most of the time he was whispering in her ear, and therefore she was not in a good position to observe his facial features in great detail. She admitted that because of the time lapse, this is in, I think this is October of 73, maybe I think this is August of 73, that she is getting somewhat foggy in recalling his exact appearance and has looked at the artist's conception so often, that's the Bing sketch, she feels she is being influenced by this. She's not the only one who says this, by the way. Bill Mitchell, there's 302 where he's like, look, I've seen, this guy so often that he's what I see now. So if Flo is the best witness, then Dracula is the best sketch. No, remember, the Dracula sketch is made, 18 years later? Remember, Flo tells the FBI she can't remember what Cooper looks like by 76. She goes, hey, I don't remember what he looks like. So now but let's look at the Dracula sketch though. The Dracula sketch is not inconsequential. Okay. Because the Dracula sketch, I think about this. Flo, 18 years later, may not remember what Cooper looked like. Okay. But she remembers features, I guess, right? She remembers kind of I'm not sure what to say, how to say that, but she remembered his some of the features that he had. And the features that the Dracula sketch has, let me see. Let me find the Dracula sketch. Come on, where is Dracula? Come on, people. Or I'm yelling at myself trying to find the Dracula sketch. There he is. Okay. But look at the Dracula sketch. Now this is 14 years after she says, I forgot what he looks like. But check it out. Wide forehead, pouty lower lip, beakish nose, pointy chin, long, narrow face. How many freaking times do we have to see suspects with narrow faces, beakish noses, weird lower lips, wide foreheads before we get the clue that that's what Cooper looked like? So if your suspect has a blockhead, doesn't have a pointy chin, then he's probably not Cooper. I'm sorry. But I mean, all of these things have something in common. Pointy chin, long head, wide forehead, like thin, kind of beakish looking nose, beakish nose, beakish nose, beakish nose. I mean, beakish noses. Like, come on. Okay. Kaiser Soze, yes, that's the, as we joke about, for those who don't know the joke, that Unsolved Mystery sketch literally looks just like the friggin' Kaiser Soze sketch that comes in at the end of Usual Suspects. I mean, that is the damnedest thing you'll ever see. That is funny as shit. I mean, how does that get better? The eyes are the only thing that's different. So I thought that the comp A with comp B's eyes looks like Catalano a lot. Yeah, did I make that? I think I did make that recently. Just for fun, I was messing around, just goofing around, and I think I made a, yeah, there he is. Yeah, I put the eyes from comp B onto comp A. I mean, again, there's no basis for this, but it looks more like Bing's eyes look kind of funky. I mean, Bing's eyes look very feminine, don't they? Right? Now, those eyes, I think those eyes came from Hal Williams. Unclear. There is if anybody out there has ever found a freaking FBI facial identification catalog, that is my holy grail. These things just do not exist from that time period. And there was one on eBay for $50 friggin' dollars. I watch eBay every friggin' week for one of these things. And the 1 week it shows up on eBay, I was at CooperCon in 2022 for $50. So I don't know. I know what the numbers are. So the only people who gave eyes were Bill Mitchell, Gregory, and Hal Williams gave the eyes. Okay. And we have those numbers. I did a thing a while back where I put Bill, I was just messing around. I put Bill's eyes onto I put Bill's eyes, the eyes that Bill chose, I put those onto Cooper or onto Bing. I don't know where that would be. I forgot where I put that. Anyway, I did that. It's on Reddit, I think. If you want to go look it up. But I got sidetracked. I'm getting all hot and bothered here. I should turn that light off there. I have a friggin' ring light. Somehow get out of here and turn that ring light off. I'm starting to sweat. I'm getting all worked up thinking about Bing and his stupid little eyes. Do we know how dark the lenses were? The tint was honey colored, yellow. What was it? Brown, I guess. I think I know Bill's in the 302s literally calls. I think honey is the honey colored. I think is the thing. She says honey color, or he says honey colored. One of the stews says brown. Alice says they look like prescription sunglasses. And I think that may have more to do with the style of them, but okay. Yeah. They had a kind of a yellowy brown tint. Bing with the eyes looks like Howard Hunt. Yeah, I guess so. Yes. Cooper was ugly. I mean, again, people with handsome suspects hate me on that. The only time I get pushback on that is people who have suspects who aren't ugly. But by God, read the 302s, people. Like I get accused of revisionist history. Oh, you're reinventing things in the case. Well, Jesus, if something comes out in the files, it's new evidence, is it not? It's new data. We plug it into the systems. I mean, how many times do we need to see in the FBI files, the stewardesses, and even a man, Spreckle even says that guy's too handsome to be Cooper. I mean, look, if they're using attractiveness as a metric, then that tells me he's below average looking. Okay. Because if he's just like average looking, oh, I got a super chat. Thank you, Stuart. DB Cooper knew how to market himself as a threat. Sure. Sunglasses for sure. He was scary. I mean, he wasn't messing around. I mean, they believed him. I mean, what does Tina says? He made sure that I knew we were facing a real and serious threat. Okay, now you're being funny, Lou. Bing is a perfect match for Rekka. Good Lord. I assume you're being funny. Do I still think they're Solaramas? No, I think they're Ballaramas. Because Solaramas, as I'll give Flyjack the credit there, he's correct. I overlooked it, I forgot. Solaramas don't have frames that go all the way around. Okay, the frames on the top. Ballaramas, I ordered a pair from Italy. This should be here next week. Of Ballaramas originals. And I think they have a yellow tint too. So I think they're Ballaramas. That really accurately, because those are the only ones, because it's kind of weird, because Tina says that they're wraparounds, yet we have a couple witnesses saying that they have horn rims on them. When you think about a wraparound, think about like Oakley's, right? Well, Oakley's don't have a horn rim, but these Ballaramas have horn rims, but they're also wraparound, and they're kind of bigger on your face. And that's kind of what I think. What sunglasses do you use in the Photoshops? I've started using Ballaramas, but generally I just use the sunglasses from, they're on eBay and they're not cheap. Original Ballaramas, not cheap. Bill, I state emphatically that Joe Lakic was Cooper, but I never refer to him as a criminal. We are referring to an aircraft hijacker, a bank robber, a bank robber. Cooper was a bank robber. He was a clever bank robber. Clever bank robber. Cooper was a criminal. He threatened to murder people for his own profit. He inconvenienced thousands of people. They shut the airport down. Thousands of people the day before Thanksgiving. Their flights were interrupted. He threatened to murder young women to their faces for profit. How is that not a criminal? You're saying he wasn't a criminal beforehand? Yeah, thank you. Kidnapper. Let's add it up, okay? Okay. He committed armed robbery. He committed extortion. He committed aircraft piracy. He committed kidnapping. Yeah, I'm sure there's other ones that they could have thrown at him as well. He violated the interstate, whatever. There's some kind of interstate thing too. Yeah, come on, people. Cooper wasn't a criminal. I'm not gonna say it wasn't his first major criminal act, but to say he wasn't a criminal, he was a criminal. He committed a hijacking. He threatened to kill people. But no, Erica, yeah, he says he never referred to Joe Lakic as a criminal, not Cooper. But he says Joe Lakic was Cooper, so they're one and the same. I don't think Rekka had anything to do with Cooper. Personally, I am not convinced. I again, remember, people, memory. Okay, this Jeff Ossadich story. Jeff Ossadich. Sure, he believes that he saw Walter Rekka the night before Thanksgiving in 71. I'm sure in his mind he thinks that. But how do we really know? It might find 50 years later. That's again, I don't buy it. Yes, Joe Lakic had a grudge and he sued the FBI for that grudge. Didn't hide. This is the problem there. Look, I'm going to have Bill, I'm going to have you on, and I will be polite because I like you. I met you. You're a friend. I don't think he was Cooper, but I'll let you have a say. I think people would be interested in seeing Joe Lakic. Bill, remember your American history with the people who carried out the Boston Tea Party and threw crates of tea into the ocean criminals. Sure. Joe Lakic was an avenger. So he's avenging his daughter's death at the hands of her. Let's just think about this. This is like Grider territory here. This is Grider logic. Sorry, Bill. I like you, man. But okay. So Joe Lakic's daughter is killed by her husband in a murder-suicide on an airplane. And yeah, the FBI, the family were begging, saying, hey, don't antagonize him because he's going to do something crazy. And the FBI shoot out the tires and stuff of this plane. And the guy ends up shooting the pilot, Susan, and then her, and then himself. So, okay, so to avenge his daughter, who was murdered by her husband, he's going to go threaten other men's 20-something-year-old daughters with death unless he makes money. Like, what are you avenging? Like, who are you fighting? That's not, that doesn't make sense. His problem was with the FBI. How is hijacking a plane and extorting money out of an insurance company, out of an airline, avenging your dead daughter? Again, look, how is threatening other men's young daughters something that an honorable man would do? I mean, I understand he might have been disgruntled, may have been out of his mind at the time, but he adopted her daughter. She had like a 1-year-old daughter. He became her father. And he sued the FBI and won. The very first time the FBI ever lost a wrongful death lawsuit was Lakic's daughter. Yeah, thank you, Elizabeth. The money shows it wasn't about vengeance. Like, I mean, it's a bank robbery. Yeah, I mean, the Boston Tea Party, like, yeah, I mean, the patriots who tarred and feathered other human beings were acting criminally. I mean, just because one man's hero is another man's traitor, I guess, right? But again, comparing throwing crates of tea into, I'm going to murder you unless you give me money. I don't know. Yes, as Peterson said, Cooper was a bad guy. Yes, Cooper was a bad guy. I mean, and I think because he behaved in a calm manner really shows sociopathic tendencies, I think. Or it shows that he was used to scaring people to get his way. Did he actually use threats? Yes. I mean, the threat? No. I mean, do I have that clip of Tina? Let me try to. Do I have that clip of Tina? I think this is it. I don't have the volumes. I don't know how loud it's going to be, people. So forgive me if it's too low, but.
I'm very sure that we had a very real and horrifying threat. I'm very sure.
As Tina's saying, he made me feel very sure we had a very real and horrifying threat. Again, have we listened to what Flo said? Do I need to bring up the? I guess I do. Let me bring up Flo. Where is the clip of Flo? Okay, I guess I don't have it, but yeah, Flo is quoted as saying, he looked right at her and said, All I have to do is touch this wire here to this gadget here, and we'll all be dead. I mean, that's not. I mean, I don't. How is that? Yes, that's a very much. That's not an implied threat. That is an outright threat. Yeah, I mean, no. He says, "Is there any interviews of Tina or Flo available publicly? Not that nobody. I mean, not. I mean, there are some written interviews that I think most people haven't seen, but not any video footage. Flo, we only hear Flo's voice. I actually have sent off to the news station I actually asked the news station. I haven't heard back yet. I actually did this like a couple weeks ago. The news station that filmed the press conference, I've actually asked them to say, hey, do you have the full press conference? That'd be cool. Because there's some quotes in there. You know, we don't have audio of Flo saying, I thought he was hitting on me, or Flo saying, I thought I was going to faint, you know, all this other stuff. I'd like to hear the audio of that, you know? They're kind of cool. Okay. Yes, you are making my blood pressure climb up. People, yeah, Lakic. Okay, well, like Bill, I will have you on, man. But that clip of Tina came from a interview that she did with like ABC, I think, or something like that. And I've tried to find that full clip and I can't find it. So that's kind of disappointing. But it came from an old clip. It's an old clip from an old news thing. Let's see. But yeah, the sketches though, like I mean, am I making sense to people out there? Like, these things have stuff in common, right? All of these. Narrow face, beakish nose, pouty lip, pointy chin. I mean, it's consistent. It's consistent. I'm sorry, Skabone. I'm not mad at you, Skibone. Don't think I'm mad at you. You said, I asked the question, Ryan. I'm not mad. I wasn't taking out any aggression on you. I was just saying that in general, if you didn't know the answer, that's fine. I have no problem with that. Oh, well, yeah, that question. I wasn't I wasn't attacking you, Skibone. I was answering the question in a very passionate way, I suppose. That's funny. All the sketches look like Rekka if you're willing to ignore almost all the dissimilarities. I know. Like all right, Bill. My next live show, maybe 2 weeks from now, Bill, we will have a Joe Lakic show. Do I have Lakic on here? Where is he? Where's my guy? There he is. Yeah, we'll have a Joe Lakic show. There he is. I mean, I think his head's a little too wide, but his chin looks fine. His lips don't look too different, honestly. His nose is not huge, I guess. His hair looks right, I guess, maybe, but he's a man. Sure, Rekka was copycat material. Rekka wishes he could have done it, for sure. Do I have any theories on Clara? Well, what was the one that? Oh, Nicole, you had a great one. You had a great thought on your most recent Vortex episode. that, oh, what was it? Oh, I know what it was. Yeah, that Clara had been conned by Cooper. That I had, for some reason, I had never thought about that. That, like, her story, she thought she was telling the truth to Max Gunther. She was earnest in her belief, but that, I mean, think about that. We see that a lot. What's his face? There's a suspect, Arthur Durham. They took his DNA. Arthur Durham, when he died, his girlfriend or wife was like, he told me he was Cooper for 20 years or whatever, and now that he's dead, I want to see if it's true or not, you know? So, like, yeah, maybe her boyfriend, although I guess the problem with that is that the money, right? I mean, Clara says they had all this money, but they didn't really spend much, though, did they? Isn't that right? Did they? I mean, they didn't spend much of it, and yeah, I guess I don't know. Now that I'm thinking about it, unless the part about the barn is made up, maybe the whole how they met, maybe Gunther romanticized that a bit, the meeting in the shed or whatever, right? Because if she was being scammed, then that'd be a hell of a scam for her to meet this guy on the night of the hijacking in her shed. So, yeah. What if they met after the hijacking and that's a story he told her? Well, but she's in the story though. So, yeah, but I guess maybe she could have incorporated it into her story that she was the original person. I don't know. Has Lakic's granddaughter ever commented on it? I've not seen Susan comment on it. She's around though. She was raised by Lakic. He raised her until the day he died, or he was her father until the day he died. So she didn't know, and she had no other father because her parents were both dead. Is Gunther essential reading for a Cooperite? Sure. You can read it for free on archive.org. You can read it just for free on there. Get an archive.org account. Type in DB Cooper, what really happened. Yeah, no, it's essential reading for Cooperite for sure. It's a good book too. I mean, it's other than Skyjack, it's probably the easiest book to read on the Cooper case. I mean, it's not on the Cooper case, but it's the easiest Cooper book to digest, I think, just because it's like a book. What is Gunther? Okay, so Max Gunther is the author of a book called DB Cooper, What Really Happened. That was published in the 80s. He said that he was contacted. Yes, Nicole says definitely read. Yes, definitely read it, yeah. He's an author who said he was contacted by Cooper's widow, and she gave him the scoop. And there are some things in that book that, with the gift of hindsight, sound like we go, oh wow, that's interesting. Like, for example, in the book, he is an industrial chemical salesman. Well, that tie is covered in industrial chemicals. So that really, that's really, spot on, really, right? So I don't know. But then again, I mean, the thing about Cooper though, is this case is so rife with coincidences. I mean, look at suspect number one, right? The bank robber pilot who happens to be arrested in Woodland the day of the hijacking. Suspect number one. That's a hell of a coincidence. Okay. There's a lot of these coincidences. I mean, you have a guy a few days before the hijacking talking to pilots about jumping out the back of a 727 the guy lives in Portland, it turns out, or the guy is visiting Portland. I mean, that's weird. A lot of coincidences. All right. What keeps Elizabeth, norjack.org, Norjak. Norjack is the code name for this case by the FBI, Norjack, norjak.org. Okay. Can we all agree that it's none of the suspects? Maybe Lakic is interesting and does have good points, but it's not Braden. Well, it's definitely not Recca or Weber. I'm not going to rule out Ted Braden, but Recca and Weber, hell yeah. But yeah, norjack.org is where you can read all the testimonies from the witnesses, look at the sketches, see what they said about the sketches, and yada yada. Good question there. What keeps you interested and dedicated to the Cooper case, especially when it's a crime that is quite unlikely to be solved? The same reason people play the lottery, I guess. There's always hope, and I guess I'm a sucker for a mystery. And I guess because it seems like it could be, maybe it's the same reason why people love to play golf, because it just seems like you could be good at it if you figured it, if you tried, right? Like Cooper seems solvable, right? It seems like it could be solved. But I feel like the more I learn about the case, the less I believe that. But I mean, because the FBI tried. It's always easy to say, well, the FBI covered it up, whatever. No, it's bullshit. The FBI didn't cover anything up. They tried really hard. And they're guys who were really dedicated to it. Tried really hard. I've talked to a lot of these agents now. I think I'm up to 5 agents who've worked in the case. Yeah, 5. Yeah. And like, so they worked hard. I mean, they tried. You know, they just couldn't. I mean, Cooper just got lucky. That's all. Okay. Cooper didn't kill anyone, so he's not a bad guy. What? No. What do you mean? What do you mean not a bad guy? Just because he didn't kill anybody. He's an asshole. I mean, again, I'm not. If you, Jay, inconvenience thousands of people and threaten to kill people for money, you're not a good person, man. You're a bad guy. The TWA case that Ryan brought up in the 70s used ANFO. What do you mean ANFO? Ammonium nitrate fuel oil was used in the instead of dynamite in the 70s. Was that what like the Weather Underground used and stuff? But see, why not use dynamite? You could buy dynamite at the store. Remember, there's an expose from 1970 where these people go into a hardware store and buy a dozen sticks of dynamite. It's 24 cents a stick. So they pay $3 for a dozen sticks. For a dozen sticks of dynamite, they pay $3. No ID needed to be shown or nothing. Here you go. Here's your dynamite. So, ouch, Jamie. That's a funny line there, but ouch. Yeah, he's not a serial killer like Jack the Ripper, but I mean, there's levels of criminal. I mean, just because you're not like cutting people's heads off doesn't mean you're not a bad guy. I mean, aren't there different levels of bad guy? Come on. I will say Bill Rollins's cover of his book is probably the best DB Cooper, oddest cover for a book I've ever seen. Do I have it on my bookshelf? I do somewhere. Yeah. Weirdest cover you'll ever see. Okay. So maybe he wasn't very, I'm not going to say Cooper was pure evil. Look, I mean, I am friends with Martin McNally who did the same damn thing, right? So yeah, Mac's not evil. Mac was a criminal though. He was a felon. Mac will admit it. I'm sure guys like Rob Hetty and LaPointe, if he was still alive, would say, yeah, I was a dummy. And they were PTSD'd out of their minds. They come back from Vietnam and they're all like this and that, you know. But I mean, no, it wasn't a good thing to do. You know, the actual airplane bombers used that rather than dynamite. Yeah, if you watch Airplane, right? No, is it not Airplane? Airport. Airplane's the spoof. But if you watch Airport, it's been on Netflix recently. But Airport is about a guy who has a briefcase bomb, right? Uh, what do I think of Bill's book on Lakic? I mean, I like Bill. I like Bill. You know, I like his Tina Barr idea. Not, I mean, decent that Cooper could escape on a boat and all this other stuff. That's not. I mean, I get it. Yeah, he builds a good case. I mean, look, everybody. I mean, look, not to insult Bill, but I mean, Colbert builds a good case for Rackstraw, right? I mean, you can build a good case for somebody. Just, you know, a lot of suspects have good cases built. You know, a lot of suspects you can. I mean, Skip Hall, Braden. I mean, a lot of these people have good cases built for them, but you know, I don't prefer Airport over Airplane. No, of course, Airplane's amazing, but Airport is the one I was talking about. Yeah, the Airport movies. Okay, what are we talking about? Anything else interesting that I would like to share lately? Here we go. More about the nose, people. Here is Alice Hancock talking about noses. Okay, I had to FOIA this from the Albuquerque Police Department, but this is a suspect, Alan Cooper. This is the photograph. This is the exact photograph that she saw. Okay, this is Alice Hancock. Unknown subject's nose was narrower. Well, that looks plenty narrow, doesn't it? Complain all you want. Bring up Le Bissonnière, the drunk, in my opinion, saying that his nose was wider. Well, yeah, when we say in the 302s where somebody says the guy's nose should be wider, well, hell, they're referring to Bing. I mean, that nose, if you did not draw that nose looks like Michael Jackson's nose. It looks inhumanly small. So when you say it's all relative, right? It's like seeing a guy who's 5'10", you're like, well, I think he's taller than that. Doesn't mean he's Shaquille O'Neal. It's just saying he's taller than 5'10". So when you say, when you point to a 302 that says his nose should be wider, yeah, wider than what? Wider than that sketch, not a wide nose. Man, Alan Cooper was a fruit, by the way. Alan Cooper went out and he was part of the Wounded Knee. They called him Crazy Al. He was part of the Wounded Knee occupation. He was a big guy into the. He was big into the. Into the American Indian movement in the 70s, even though he wasn't an American Indian. The first Bing image should be the primary sketch on Wikipedia. Well, it's not, because it is correct. I mean, I'm the one who uploaded the current picture on Wikipedia, the cleaner version of Comp B, the better quality version, at least that I got from the FBI. But like Comp B should be the photograph on the Wikipedia, because it is the most current. It is the official for their reasoning. It is the official FBI's. It's their final composite of Cooper. So that is I mean, I'm fine with Comp B being the photograph on there because it is the most recent. Okay. Hey, yeah. Do I think Le Bissonnière got Cooper and another passenger mixed up while he was drunk? Man, look. Le Bissonnière says Cooper is wearing a blazer and a sporty vest. Like, yeah. I mean, it almost is like he is mixing up. Do I not have the video of the passengers? I think he's mixing up. It's almost like he's thinking about, oh man, I'm gonna do this. Where is do I have the, yeah, so Murphy, there we go. Yeah, Murphy, this guy here. he's wearing a kind of a blazer thing with a sporty kind of red vest sort of thing.
I didn't see a damn thing.
Were you in the front or the back?
I was in the forward portion of the plane. I saw nothing. I know nothing. I was treated well, and everything was wonderful as far as I was concerned until we landed.
When did you first learn there was a hijacking involved?
I did not know until we got off the plane.
Now, obviously, that guy is wearing glasses. He's wearing Mr. Magoo glasses and a hat. So, I mean, I'm not saying that he mixed him up for Cooper, but like, where do you come up with sporty vest and a blazer for a guy wearing a trench coat and a suit jacket? I don't know. No, I mean, look, Lebissoniere says he saw Cooper so many times because he kept going to the bathroom. Well, I mean, maybe he had a bladder infection or something, but I would say that it might be more likely that Lebissoniere was drunk. I think he's the obnoxious drunk that Bill Mitchell keeps referring to. Because remember, the obnoxious drunk is not the cowboy. We thought that for a long time. Almost certainly it's not the cowboy. Okay, the obnoxious drunk, Bill said he was an older guy. And the obnoxious drunk, as soon as the FBI agents got on the bus, said, "Hey, how long is this going to take? I got to piss." So that's the obnoxious drunk. And I mean, look at the picture of Lebissoniere getting off the plane. I mean, there's a better when you see him in motion, his hair is all disheveled looking. His suit is all like discombobulated. I mean, and he was sitting close to, and Bill says that he's pretty sure that the drunk was sitting a couple rows in front of him. And if you read the Lebissoniere, he's in like row where is he? Where did I end up putting Lebissoniere when I was trying to make the seating chart? Yeah, okay. So that's a little more forward, but yeah, row, I guess 12 or so. But he did say he was in front of him. Now, what kind of creeped me out a little bit is that Bill Mitchell, when I talked to Bill the other day, I said, "Hey, will you tell me more about the drunk?" He said he was an older guy. And he may have even called him an old man. And he indicated that the guy was in front of him. Bill may have even said, in fact, let me find that text message. I'll read that message from Bill. So Bill said about the drunk. It made me almost think that Robert Gregory was drunk. Just saying. Okay. All right. He says, "As I am sitting here thinking back 50 years ago, I think it was on the bus on the way to the terminal that the elderly guy said he had to go to the bathroom. He said it to the agent standing there in front of the bus. He made the agent chuckle." Okay. Oh dear. Bill says, the obnoxious drunk, "I think I remember him sitting in the row in front of me, an elderly man. I think he was already drunk when he got on." There's only one elderly man on that plane, people. Only one elderly person, really, who was in the seat in front of Cooper, who was in the seat Robert Gregory is sitting in row 17. Robert Gregory is sitting right in front of Bill Mitchell. Bill just says here, an elderly man, the drunk was an elderly man in the seat in front of him. Well, I mean, the only elderly man that I know of who's back there, who's in that back, let's see, what do we have here, that seating chart? Let's see, so Michael Cooper's 28, Nancy House is 28, Cord Spreckle's like 30 at the time, and then Robert Gregory's 71. And I mean, Robert Gregory looks elderly. So, I mean, I know that Russell's flyjack, but I think, yeah, that sounds like Robert Gregory. Yes. And yes, Gregory did say the hijacker sat by the brown-haired stewardess the whole time, which is bad. I don't know. I mean, does that not sound like Robert Gregory, people? Flyjacks rustled. Can't be Gregory. Has to be Gregory. Gregory has to be right. I mean, but come on. I mean, let's be real about it. I mean, look how Gregory is a tryhard. Maybe he's the drunk. Maybe it's not Lebesnier. So maybe it is Gregory. I'm trying to find a picture of Gregory for you guys. I mean, of all those people, I mean, I thought Bill just said an older guy. No, Bill says elderly. I mean, Lebesnier is not, Lebesnier was literally 50 years old at the time. So, yeah. Sorry, Flyjack, but I mean, an elderly man sitting in the row in front of him, that's Robert Gregory. I mean, come on. Okay. If I had to bet on Cooper being American or non-American, which would you choose? Non-American. I'm non-American at this point. Somebody brought up recently that according to Tina, he used the word states. He said, don't land anywhere to refuel in the States. The only people I've ever known to say that are Canadians that I know. Or people who are out of the country. Like Americans don't, I've never said, oh, I'm from the States. Right? That doesn't sound like, and then Cooper asking for U.S. currency or American. We don't know which one. But he did qualify the money. He said, I want American currency, or he said, I want U.S. currency. Please show me an American who is that worldly that they would differentiate money that way. It's bucks. Give me bucks. Give me dollars. I'm not gonna say give me American currency or U.S. currency. That, I mean, what about the tie only being sold in the States? Well, I mean, again, if you're from Vancouver, Canada, hell, you come to America all the time, right? Did he say a boot? Did he say a boot? I don't know if he said a boot. I mean, not all Canadian. I mean, he may have been a Mexican. I don't know. It could have been something. I don't know. I mean, but like, Chanks, you're saying that you would say if you walk into a bank, you would say, I want circulated U.S. currency instead of saying I want $200,000. I don't know. I mean, yes, technically Canada is American, I guess. That's funny. I suppose Canada is you are North American. That's for sure. Let's see. Where is? Do I have? Oh man, do I not have that thing of the passengers? Yeah, well, sorry, but yeah, Robert Gregory it looks elderly, for sure. And Robert Gregory was sitting. I mean, I'll reread this just to make sure I'm not like messing that up, All right. I said, just so I have the proper context. Sorry, folks. Bear with me. This will be a perfect thing to show you guys when I get it uploaded. But, okay. I said to Bill, you said you remembered a drunk on the plane and that this guy said, hey, I got to take a piss to the FBI agent on the bus. It's a great story, I say. Great story. But do you have any other memory of this man? Not what he looked like per se, but just his behavior. was this same guy being loud or obnoxious? Was this same guy who said he had the piss being loud or obnoxious on the plane? Several passengers reported this man being obnoxious. I think I remember him sitting in the row in front of me, an elderly man. And when the captain said everyone can move up to the front, he moved up front too. I think he was pretty drunk when I got on, but not much else. Okay. Yeah. So which of these two guys would you say is elderly looking? I mean, they both look, hell, Lebesnier looks older than 51. But Gregory's 71 years old. I mean, he's elderly. So I can't wait for the 8,000 word rebuttal from Flyjack tomorrow. I'm sorry, buddy. But hey, maybe being drunk gave him clarity though, right? He did take frequent trips to the bathroom, and hey, being 71, maybe he can't hold it as much. So that kind of does add up, right? Yeah. Gregory gets some things wrong. Yeah, I agree. Gregory does look younger than 71. Lebesnier older than 71. Yeah. But Gregory definitely looks way older. Yep. Than Lebesnier. And yeah, both could look elderly to a college kid. Sure. That was my thinking. That's why I kind of was like, well, maybe it's Lebesnier, but the bit about sitting in the row in front of him, we're almost positive that Robert Gregory sat in row 17, I believe, at this point. I asked Bill if he was bald. I sent Bill those photos, and he said he can't remember which one. He can't really think. But yeah, and think about some of the things Gregory gets wrong. But Gregory gets, like I said, I give Gregory more credit than maybe he deserves because of the jacket thing, right? But Gregory is, and like I said, Gregory's testimony is consistent with Cooper's general appearance, right? The long face, the pointy kind of nose, the fat lip. So that is consistent. But I'm looking at his testimony now. A brown-haired stewardess was seated by the man at all times. He also says that during the flight, the man was seated in the window seat. Okay, he says at the window seat. And the stewardess had the aisle seat. During the flight, he noticed a man seated in a window seat on the starboard side of the plane. A brown-haired stewardess was seated by him at all times. The stewardess had the aisle seat. Mr. Gregory thought this was strange. The stewardess said not to look at the man, but Mr. Gregory said he'd managed to turn back and look at the man twice. He stayed slouched in his seat. He never saw the man stand and never heard him speak. He did not see that the man had any packages with him. The name of this stewardess is unknown to him. At about 10 minutes before the announcement was made that there was to be a delay in landing at the Seattle airport, Gregory rose to go to the bathroom and started toward the one on the starboard side, but the stewardess above told him to use the one on the port side, which he did. So Flo was in the cockpit. After the aircraft landed, the passengers in the rear of the aircraft were told to move forward. That's correct. But since Mr. Gregory was already forward of the above man, he stayed in his seat. Now, that's bullshit. Mr. Gregory said he was the closest person to this man except for the stewardess, unless Gregory wasn't sitting in row 17. But I think Gregory says he believed he was the last passenger aboard the aircraft. He believed he had seat 18, which was an aisle seat on the port side of the aircraft in the rear. Well, clearly he didn't have 18. Bill was sitting in row 18. That is a fact. Okay, that Bill was in row 18. So Gregory says, so that's a lie. Gregory says row 18. It says seat 18, which was an aisle seat on the port side. So that's why I put him on row 17, an aisle seat. But I feel like Spreckle also says, okay, but let me finish this. After landing, he noticed the blonde stewardess carrying a money bag about 2 feet tall. He did not see her give it to the man. Mr. Gregory said there were 3 stewardesses on the flight, the 1 blonde and the 2 brunettes. Well, that's correct. When the passengers got off the aircraft by the front door, the above man stayed on board. Mr. Gregory said he had not seen this man board the aircraft, but remarked that Gregory, was the last passenger to board in Portland. Well, but Cooper was second to last aboard, so how could Gregory not see him board? I don't know. Mr. Gregory said the guy was swarthy, wore with very dark horn rims, believed the man to be short, maybe 5'9", 35 years old, Mexican-American descent with some American Indian blood. Very specific, Mr. Gregory. So that's either the confidence of a drunk man to remember what he saw, or that's something going on. I don't know. Where can I read everything the FBI? Where can I read everything the FBI has released in this case? Well, you can read 46,000 pages if you Google DB Cooper Vault. But I would suggest going to my website, norjack.org. I have a lot of good stuff on there, pertinent stuff. But if you Google FBI DB Cooper Vault, there's 46,000 pages there you can read. Yes, Michael Cooper said he sat in row 17, port window seat. And I've got Michael Cooper there. And I've got Gregory in 17C and Spreckle in 16B. But Spreckle, though, let me see what Spreckle said exactly about where he was sitting. Spreckle says he sat on the left side of the plane in the row of seats second from the rear of the plane. So yeah, okay. So listen, we've got, think about this. Let's try to parse this out. So Michael Cooper says he was sitting in 17A, the window seat of 17 on that side of the plane, right? Here we have Spreckle saying second from the rear of the plane. Now, there's no way that he's sitting in the middle seat. So if Spreckle's sitting in row 17, second from the rear, right? He's definitely going to be, he's going to be sitting in the aisle seat because he's not like scooching up to a Michael Cooper in a plane that's empty, right? So Spreckle says, let's see, there's somewhere. Okay, yeah, it must not be in his. Must not be in that one, but in one of his statements, maybe one of the sketch statements, he mentions that like he was able to look over his shoulder and see Cooper, which would make sense if you're in 17C and Cooper's like right there. You know, you can look over and see him. You know. Okay. Wasn't McNally said to be Puerto Rican by his witnesses? Spanish. They said Spanish or Mexican for McNally, who is. And I remember asking Mac. I said, Mac, were you wearing makeup? No, I wasn't wearing makeup. And Mac is a Mick from Detroit. He is McNally. He's every bit as pale as you would think. Could he have moved up an aisle after going to the toilet? Well, I mean, maybe. Why was the plane so empty on the day before Thanksgiving? Good question. Don't know. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know, actually. It's a good question. Maybe back then people, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but maybe back then people did live closer to home back then. So maybe you didn't have so much air travel the day before Thanksgiving like you would now. Maybe people could just drive. You know, yes, I do know lots of Spanish people are pasty white, but clearly they also called him dark skinned Mac, and he wasn't wearing makeup. I don't know why. Maybe it has to do with stereotypes and subconscious prejudices. Yeah, that a lot of people think that. What's his face? LaPointe was described as swarthy. And LaPointe is a WASP from Vermont. Okay, he is a white boy. So they call McNally Spanish, and they call LaPointe swarthy. I guess the only thing that makes me really think about is Flo, though. I mean, Flo saying Latin descent is very. I mean, if she is the best witness, I mean, she's the only one who he actually like stared at. They had a staring contest briefly because he kept looking at her and she kept looking at him. She says in her statement to the news media, we just stared at each other. He looked at me and I looked at him. And finally, she goes, "What?" And he goes, "Miss, I think you better look at that note." So I mean, and also again, 3 of our witnesses who interact with Cooper, Flo, Dennis, and Alice, specifically use the term olive. You know, that's not saying dark. That's not saying medium. Dark is, I mean, olive is a very specific skin tone, right? That's not a tan. That's a olive color, right? So lots of Italian people passed as Native Americans. Sure, of course they did. I was going to say Chief J. Strongbow, but Weepy Eyes Cody or Iron Eyes Cody? That was the guy's name. Did they recognize Mac having a wig? Well, the stewardesses did, because if we recall, when the Cadillac crashed into his plane, his wig got knocked askew, and Sharon, the stewardess, straightened his wig for him. And of course, I told Mac, I said, you know, Sharon says that she straightened your wig for you. She told the news that night that she straightened your wig. Mac goes, "Nobody touched me on the plane." But that's not true, because his sunglasses got knocked off briefly by the flight engineer. The flight engineer says that at one point he like moved or something and popped into McNally and knocked his sunglasses off. So McNally was definitely touched twice on the flight, at least, you know, once by Sharon, who straightened his wig for him, which was polite. And the flight engineer bumped into him. His wig was not terrible, though. He spent $20 on his wig. So that was like $100 on a wig these days, right? He really wanted the wig to be spot on. I think Ryan would burn red in California. Yeah, I am an Irishman. I am a Scotch-Irish American mutt. In fact, I remember when I went to go look for Loch Ness Monster, I did that. So I went to law school in Cambridge for a while. And I went to go up to Inverness because some of my old distant people are from Inverness, Scottish ancestors. And so I went up to Inverness because I want to go see Loch Ness Monster. I want to see what all this Loch Ness Monster stuff's about. I'm up there and I go into a bed and breakfast. And if you've never been to England, the UK, they don't have, I mean, most places don't have like Holiday Inns, right? They have bed and breakfast. That's what you do. So, anyway, yes. So when I registered my name, the lady there, she goes, "Ryan Burns." She goes, "Aren't you the perfect Scotch-Irish American mutt? You have an Irish first name and a Scottish last name." So, yeah, I am Scotch-Irish. Do I have Native American ancestry? Yes. Very much so. Very much. My grandfather was 1/8, I guess. If I was 1/4, I could get the casino money, I guess. But no, Choctaw is what we are for sure. It's my high cheekbones, my black hair. But no, I didn't get the skin tone though. My grandfather there had it. He had it all, boy. He was dark as can be. My grandpa looked like he could be in dances. My grandpa looked like he could have been in Dances with Wolves. Who do I think is DB Cooper? Somebody we don't know. Somebody whose name we've never heard of. If DB Cooper did the same thing on the same plane, same weather conditions, do you think the FBI catch him? Well, I mean, today's FBI would not throw away the cigarette butts, that's for sure. But again, I mean, I guess my DNA is on record somewhere with Ancestry, I guess. Recca for sure. Freaking Shrek is not DB Cooper, people. Do I think he survived the jump? Hell yeah. Hell yeah. I mean, shall I read this again? Like, I will read it. I will read this, by God, straight from my book. Let me find this. I have these statistics in my book here. Maybe it's under odds. I'm trying to find this. Okay, here we go. All right, I write this. I say, although the danger of Cooper's parachute escape would become exaggerated over time, with some media reports describing it as suicidal, it wasn't without risk. Any slight mishap by the hijacker could have had a fatal result, and the odds of an accident occurring were increased significantly due to the jump occurring at night. Indeed, the various parachute experts whom the FBI consulted considered it likely that he was injured during the jump, due to his inability to see the ground clearly. But what about Cooper actually losing his life in the jump? Despite the darkness and the less than ideal weather, its odds of perishing were still quite low. According to the USPA's fatality index rate, there were only 3.2 fatalities per 100,000 skydives in 1970, or around 0.0032%. Of course, the average skydive doesn't take place at night amidst light rain showers from the back of a 727. But even if one were to suggest that DB Cooper's jump was 20 times more dangerous than the average skydive, that still leaves him with a 99.936% chance of survival. So there you have it. I mean, if it's 20 times more dangerous, just going by the odds of skydiving, 99.936%. If it's 20 times more dangerous than the average skydive. So, yes, Cooper survived. I mean, the money at Tina Bar is really the best. Honestly, if you want, it's kind of funny because when I was first coming up, when I first kind of got into this in like 2008 or so, the Tina Bar money was almost the evidence, right? Oh, well, his money washes up on shore. The plane went over the Columbia River, yada, yada. Must be Cooper's. Cooper must have died. But now, that was the best evidence that he died, really. But now that we know that the money did not get wet in the wintertime, then that's the best. And we know that he jumped well before the river. Tina Bar money is actually the best evidence that he survived. Because, I mean, if Cooper dies, how does the money get there? Other than some scenario where somebody finds his dead body somewhere and, buries him and takes the money and decides to bury it on Tina Bar. I mean, so you already have the 99.936% chance of survival if it's 20 times more dangerous than a skydive. Now you're going to have to come up with a scenario where somebody finds his body and doesn't say anything about it, buries it or something, takes the money, and then it puts it on Tina Bar. I mean, kind of crazy. Have I worked out the redacted LA suspect's name link like you did with the other redacted names? Yeah, I know his, I don't have it offhand, but yeah, I know his length for sure. Good question, Erica. Thank you. If McCoy was alive and you had him on the show, what would you like to ask him? Huh. So let's say let's pretend McCoy didn't escape from prison. all of our PTSD hijackers were out within like 10 years. Hetty, all the Vietnam messed up guys, all of them. Francis Goodell, Billy Walsh, Hetty, LaPointe. There's another one out there too. I forget his name. But like all of them were released within years. McCoy, and all were given like life sentences too, and they were all released. So McCoy, if he hadn't escaped and been killed, he would have also been released probably before 1980, I'm sure. So in a scenario where McCoy just doesn't try to escape, I don't know. Actually, that's a good question. Ask me if he ever knew Braden in Vietnam. I don't think he would have. Braden was gone by 66. McCoy, we've got his DD-214 somewhere for the military. I'm not sure if he was in Nam that early. He may have been, but yeah, I mean, he may have. I mean, maybe he knew Braden. I don't know, but I'd probably not. But as you know, but he was a Green Beret, and so was Braden. So maybe, but I don't know what question I would ask McCoy. Ed says, ask him what else he brought on board besides the briefcase. Well, we know that though. I mean, you know, McCoy gave a pretty extensive interview to Bernie Rhodes. So we know exactly what he had with him on his mystery bag and things like that. Do I think McCoy and Rackstraw ever crossed paths? Yeah, for sure. They were both chopper pilots about the same time in Vietnam. I don't think they were the same unit, but they were both chopper pilots. So that's very plausible for sure. I don't think he would have known Sheridan Peterson, McCoy. He wouldn't. I don't think he knew Gossett either. Gossett was in the rear with the gear. Gossett was a rear echelon, a RIMF. Big Ed knows what a RIMF is, don't you, Big Ed? But he was a RIMF, and Gossett was in the Korean War, but he was a RIMF during Vietnam for sure. I don't think Rackstraw would have come across Gossett. Ryan, do you see that McVie saw a guy who knew both Skip Hall and Braden? Yeah, I heard about that. That's interesting. Who's that guy? I forget his name, but yeah, I didn't really get into that, but it'll be interesting to see what comes out when the FBI files come out about Kennedy and what Skip Hall's involvement was, because Jim Garrison was convinced. It's interesting that Skip Hall is not a character in JFK in the Oliver Stone movie, because all those people, I guess maybe he's in the director's cut. There's a Skip Hall character because, I mean, Jim Garrison was all over Skip Hall. I mean, it's not hyperbole. It's not not making it up. Skip Hall met with Lee Harvey Oswald, not long before the assassination. Skip Hall was in Dallas, Texas, November of 1963. Okay, how long he was there, we don't know, but he was there. I mean, his stepson would have no reason to make this up. I mean, John Pappas was an honorable guy who died recently, said that, Skip had him hide a Carcano rifle in early 1964. He's like, hey, you could put this somewhere. I mean, that's the same rifle that killed Kennedy that Oswald had. So, yeah, I'm kind of with you, Lou. I mean, I'm actually not a conspiracy theorist when it comes to JFK. I think people don't want to believe that one person could do something like that. But, other presidential assassins, assassins are the same way. I know Lenin wasn't the president, but people just kill people sometimes. And he got a lucky shot. He just got not a lucky shot, but I mean, if you go to Dallas and go to Dealey Plaza, like it's a lot smaller than it seems on TV, right? For those who've been there, it's small. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Reagan damn near got killed by a weirdo who liked Jodie Foster. I mean, sometimes it happens. Could Hall have helped Oswald after he shot at General Walker? Yeah. Look, you can't possibly believe Oswald did that, man. Bruh, his head went back. You're in denial. No, I'm not. How many videos have you seen of people getting shot? Like, again, I go to Live Leak or somewhere, and go watch videos of people getting shot in the head. Okay. Your head will go backwards if you're shot from the back. Yeah, exit wounds are big for a reason. There's more force. Okay. I mean, this sounds terrible, but like, I mean, it is. Look, your entry wound is only going to be as powerful as the kick of the rifle, essentially. That's why, like, in movies where somebody gets shot with a shotgun and they fly through the window, like, that's not like, physics is essentially like the same reaction, the same kick of the gun is going to be your same, I guess, your body's reaction to being shot, essentially. But an exit wound exploding your head cavity can also make your head go backwards. So it sounds, I mean, yeah, I get it, but it is possible for that to happen. So yeah, not in denial. I mean, I understand what it looks like, but I've also seen, you know, I've seen enough. Okay. Yes, Oswald is a good character profile for a hijacker. Certainly. Good question there, Elizabeth. Yes. She says, I was there a month ago and I have one question. Why would Oswald wait until he turned the corner to take the shot? He had 3 other times he could have taken it. Why wait? Yeah, I mean, coming toward him would have been the easiest shot, right? I mean, he had choices on the window he could have shot out of. Have I ever shot a firearm before? Of course. I mean, I've owned 20, maybe. I'm a gun nut. Not a gun nut. I like historic guns. I have a collection of, I try to collect every main firearm from each of our wars. So I've got a Brown Bess. Yes, exactly. Somebody says, Ryan is American, you know. I'm a Southern American too. So you get double whammy. I get double bonus points for that, for being a Southerner too. I should probably get triple points for being from Mississippi even. But now I've got I've got a Brown Bess, which I feel like was an American Revolutionary thing. I've got a 1842 Springfield, which is Mexican-American War. I have an 1853 Enfield, which was what the Southerners used in the Civil War mainly. I have an 1861 Springfield, which is what the Northerners used. I don't have a Krag, which is what used in the Spanish-American War. I have an 03 Springfield, which is what the Marines used in World War I. I have a 1917 Enfield, which is what the Americans used in World War, which is what the Army used in World War I. I have an M1 Garand. I have an M1 carbine, which are our main weapons. Let's see. And I used to have a semi-automatic M16A1 for Vietnam, but I gave it to somebody. Did my ancestors fight for the Confederacy or the Union? What do you think? Yeah, we are deep. Like my ancestry, my Civil War ancestry is nuts. So you have 16 great grandfathers. 13 of my 16 great grandfathers fought for the Confederate Army. But again, if you were alive and a man in the South at the time, right? I mean, it's like Shelby Foote said, the South never had a chance to win the Civil War. And this is a Southern Mississippian saying this, right? Shelby Foote said the South never had a chance. And I agree with him. He says, whereas in the South, you know, they were conscripting. You were drafted like 14 to like 45. Okay. So every man was in the field who could do anything. Okay. Yet in the North, as Shelby Foote says, they were building the Transcontinental Railroad at the same time. The Harvard and Yale boat races were going on, and nobody on either crew, Harvard or Yale, ever thought of volunteering for the war, right? They didn't, the North didn't need them. Shelby Foote's best line is, the North fought the Civil War with one hand tied around their back. If there had been more Southern victories, and a lot more Southern victories, they would have just pulled that other hand out. So I think that's the best analogy there. They didn't need, I mean, yeah, there was all these, I mean, the North was, yeah, but yeah, so Southerners, yeah, we're very, not, I mean, obviously I'm not a pro-Confederate, but I mean, your ancestors, people say, oh, you fought for the South, but like, remember back then too, your state was really important. For example, there's a great line that says that, from Shelby Foote again, said that what the Civil War accomplished for America is that it made an are and is. And what he means is, and it's just true, if you look at like newspapers, international newspapers or whatever from like the 1850s, they will write, the United States are going to go to war with Mexico. Okay. After the Civil War, the United States is going to go to Mexico, going to go to war with whoever, right? So it made a R-A-R-E into an is. So it really was more of a collection of states before the Civil War. Okay. So for example, and this is not made up. I mean, you can read this. Like if I was going to Europe in 1835 and they said, you know, where are you from? I would say Mississippi. I wouldn't say America. Like their states were really their countries. Okay. Because remember, these are people who didn't travel. The average American born in like 1820, you know, never, they say, this is fact, I mean, I guess the average American born in like 1800, for example, never traveled more than 30 miles from where they were born their entire life. So what is Michigan to me in 1920 if I've never been more than 5 miles from where I'm born, right? So they were very much state centrist people. That's why even the army, look at the army, even the Civil War in the North, all of their units were the 15th Michigan, the 27th New York. You know, even so, it was a collection of states who were assembled together. Now they had a little more union. Obviously, they were more centralized. The North was at the time because they were the Union, and that bit the Confederates though, because there were battles in the Civil War where, for example, at Antietam or something, right? A Mississippi unit would be out of ammunition, and they needed their ammunition really badly. And there was a South Carolina regiment next door to that, down the fighting line, next to them. And they had and the South Carolina unit might have had a wagon full of bullets, ammunition, and they would not give it to the Mississippians because, hey, we're sorry, this is ours. This is South Carolina. This is South Carolina's ammunition. You can't have it. So, like, that's why a confederacy doesn't work, right? Because arms can't control the head. Only a head can control the arms. So, like, that's why unions are better than confederacies. Anyway, so yes, I am ranting here. I guess you're learning your history, your Civil War lessons for the day. Sorry, everybody. Lessons from the Civil War were outpaced 10 years later in the Franco-Prussian War. Yeah. I mean, the Civil War was the first modern war though, right? I mean, we had rifles in everybody's hands, landmines, hand grenades, torpedoes, trenches, like extensive trench networks, right? Barbed wire. Well, they called them chevaux de frise back then, but like they had hot air balloons, which I think telegraphs, railroads. The Crimean War saw a little bit of this, right? But the first big war that was modern war would have been the American Civil War for sure. And that's why, that's why, what I was going to say there, but anyway, Civil War talk's over. Sorry, people. The Monitor and the Merrimack. Yes, that's right. Thank you there. Yes. The first battles between iron ships, right? Lots of crazy things like that. Great whatever was lieutenant under the Swamp Fox in South Carolina. Yeah, look, all of us, like if you do ancestry, man, we are all descended from people. No, I didn't forget Crimea. I did say Crimea, Lou. Yeah, we are all descended from people who, you know, did things, right? Because you've got thousands of ancestors. Yeah, Erica knows her history. Now let's see. So the Monitor and the Merrimack, as a Southerner, we call it the Virginia, right? The Merrimack, it was actually the Monitor and the Virginia were the ships that were battling, but Merrimack is what they like to say. I think Lincoln only won one Southern county during his election, so it's not surprising what happened. Well, hey man, Lincoln did what he needed to do during the Civil War. I actually wrote my thesis in law school for one of my classes was on Lincoln, what Lincoln did with the U.S. Constitution, which wasn't great. I mean, Lincoln was tyrannical for a good cause. I mean, it needed to be, but like Maryland, for example, Maryland would have been a Confederate state, but before they got to vote on it, Lincoln himself, had something like 20 of their state legislators arrested without cause, just thrown into jail. So they couldn't be there for the vote. So they voted to stay within the Union. I mean, but he had to do that because look, if Maryland had seceded, then Washington, D.C. is trapped between two Confederate states. Not good, no bueno, right? So yeah, he imprisoned all these legislators. I think the best one is what Lincoln did. He deported a congressman. Okay. Imagine Trump or Biden or Obama deporting a sitting U.S. congressman, a guy named Clement Van Landingham. And what's interesting is he deported him to the South, which in some weird way is Lincoln. Scholars have looked at this legally, but like in a way that was Lincoln recognizing the South recognizing the Confederate States of America as its own country, because how can you deport somebody within your own country, right? But he literally deported him. There was like a flag of truce, and they met in the middle, and the Confederates like, who the hell is this guy? And then the Union just shoved him across. Here's your problem now. So they deported a U.S. congressman because he was speaking out against the war. Lincoln shut down the press. Okay, there was basically a lot of, a lot of people didn't want to fight the Civil War. Because again, if you're just some guy on a farm in Michigan, and you get drafted, I don't go do this. I don't care what happens 2,000 miles away. So Lincoln could have lost in 1864, but the Army voted for Lincoln in great numbers. So there's that. I agree. People love conspiracies, but nobody talks about the conspiracy to murder Lincoln's whole well, it wasn't his whole cabinet, but yeah, people forget that. And damn near could have. People forget that it wasn't just Booth. A guy at the same night, what was his name? Same night, Lewis Powell damn near killed the Secretary of State. I mean, rampaged into his house, broke the skull of the Assistant Secretary of State when his pistol didn't go off. Then he got a Bowie knife and slashed at the Secretary of State's face, cut his face off, half his face off. So every picture you'll ever see of William Seward after the Civil War, his head is turned because his face was almost basically sliced his whole face off with a Bowie knife. But he was in a neck brace, a metal neck brace, because he had the equivalent of a car accident in the 1860s. He was in a carriage accident and he hurt his neck. So he's laying up in bed, the Secretary of State, and he has this metal neck brace and he's being stabbed at his neck and it's not getting at him. And this is a 19-year-old Confederate, like special forces guy, Lewis Powell. And he's like, and he's stabbing him and it's sparking. He's in sparks. It's sparking and it's like knocking off, but he sliced his face off and then ran out. He was actually, Lewis Powell, by the way, that guy, the Confederate who did this, looked like a freaking Abercrombie model. Like if I like, handsome fella for back then, right? You don't see too many guys from that time period, who looked like a decent looking fella. But let me pull him up. Yeah, Lewis Powell was they hanged him. I mean, he was hanged, but like not a bad looking dude for that time period. There he is. Now Powell, his jaw was jacked up. He had been kicked by a mule when he was like 12. He was wounded at Gettysburg. He was the flag bearer of the 2nd Florida Infantry. Lewis Powell was, and was wounded at Gettysburg, and then became a Confederate operative with William Mosby. I got a neck. That's a big, strong dude, right? Wouldn't want that guy on top of me with a friggin' Bowie knife. But anyway, Seward survived, and let's see. Atzerodt. Yep, thank you. That's right. Dave Wilmot's ghost. Atzerodt was supposed to kill Vice President Johnson and could have. All he had to do was knock on his door. So there was no Secret Service at all back then, really. So Vice President Johnson, a drunk, was in his hotel room, and Atzerodt was downstairs. All he had to do was go knock on the door, and when Johnson opened the door, he was going to shoot him in the face. That's all he had to do. And he chickened out. They hanged him too. But yeah, and it was supposed to be Grant. So if you remember Booth, right? Booth shoots Lincoln and then stabs the officer who was in the box with Lincoln. There's 2 women, Mary Todd and this guy's wife, or no, it's his girlfriend, right? And stabs. It was Major, forget his name, can't off the top of my head. Major Rathbone, I think. Yeah, Major Rathbone. And Henry Rathbone, that was his name. Yeah. But yeah, that was supposed to be Grant. But Grant's wife, Julia, could not stand Mary Todd Lincoln, which not many people could. Mary Todd kind of lost her mind after their son Willie died in 1862. It got really weird. And anyway, that was going to be Grant. And Grant made a polite, he declined because his wife didn't want to be around Mary Todd. So that could have been Grant who got stabbed. All right. Didn't Booth's brother save Lincoln's son's life? Yes. Edwin Booth, the more famous actor. Sorry, Join Jen. How did this go to the Civil War? Hey, man, we're just chatting. I mean, you want to talk Cooper so much. Edwin Booth saved Robert Lincoln. He was falling onto a train track, and Edwin saved him. And hey, the Booths were all very pro-Union. I mean, even after it was discovered that it was John Wilkes who did it, they were horrified. They were very pro-Union. John Wilkes just, I don't know where his brain came from. I think he was just a huge racist, I think. Is that right, Ed? I didn't know that. Henry Rathbone later killed Clara. Okay. Had no idea. Henry Rathbone being the guy who Booth stabbed in the box after he shot Lincoln. Yeah. So, okay, sorry, folks. Those with me. We're off the rails here. Let me try to find something to end it with. I will await Flyjack's 8,000 word response to Gregory not being the drunk in the morning. Sorry, Fly. But I mean, I'm not convinced of it, but an elderly guy sitting in the row in front of me sounds like Gregory to me. But then again, Lebissonier looks drunk, and Lebissonier had DUIs on his record. So, and he's a lawyer too. And we know those damn lawyers love their booze. So, I don't know what to, let's see. What could I end this with? I don't know. Maybe I don't end up with anything. Any other Cooper questions? Oh, thank you, Guy. I appreciate the super chat. I really do. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. I missed the Drop Zone website, but it's still around. And it's been cataloged recently. So it'll be, I may upload the whole thing on my website, the catalog, but it's around. It's called the Skydive Forum now. A bunch of sleuths insulting each other. Yeah. It's contentious, but it's almost like theater though. Like that's the thing about like I don't hate Flyjack or anything. I mean, I don't care. I mean, he might hate me. I don't know, but like, I don't have any problem with him at all, really. It's almost like if he and I communicate privately, it's fine, but in public, we have to like stand our ground and insult each other, I guess. But it's almost theater though. Drop Zone is almost like the theater. I've asked Flyjack to be on the show. He won't do it. I told him I would call him Flyjack. He could be he could be audio only, but he won't do it. So he won't. Darren has tried to get him on his show. He likes to be elusive. I don't know why. Kayfabe, yeah. I mean, not quite kayfabe because I mean we do believe what we're doing. Rekka is a better suspect than Hahnemann. Actually, I disagree with you on that. No, that's not true. Hahnemann's definitely. I mean, neither are good suspects, but like, no, Rekka is. I mean, no. I mean, if I had to pick one, who was DB Cooper, absolutely, I would go with Hahnemann instead of Rekka. I mean, Rekka there's no planet. I mean, the dude looks like Shrek. Cooper was not Shrek. He is a white Shrek, is what Rekka is. What are you saying? Why admit they wanted to kill Cooper? Who said they wanted to kill Cooper? Who said they wanted to kill Cooper? What did we miss? Oh. Talking about Radicek. The first officer wanted to kill Cooper over the ocean. Well, didn't want to kill him. He just wanted to see if he would jump out over the ocean. Now, we do have McNally's pilots absolutely said they were trying to kill him. They admitted it. They said, we cranked the engines up. We were trying to kill him. So they said that for sure. Rekka's story is so stupid. Like it's bad. Like, I just can't even like. Yeah, Rekka is the Weber of Kenny Christensen's. Yeah, it's like, yeah, he's that bad. Like Rekka is the worst I mean, the only suspect who's actually, Vincent Peterson is a better suspect than Rekka because Rekka said he jumped over 100 miles away. So like, he could not be Cooper. Like, so, I didn't care what plane I was going to jump out. But again, jump out the side door of a jet. Rekka, I mean, the whole thing's stupid. We don't know that, Jay. He says Rekka was there that night at Cle Elum. I don't know that. That's what a guy said 50 years later. So, yeah, you're right. The only worst suspect is Rodney Bonifield. Oh, Rodney, man. I mean, do I have Rodney's picture? Tell me I've got Rodney's picture from 1970. Do I not have Rodney's picture? Oh, come on. How can I not? Come on. I don't have Rodney's picture. Okay. Damn. Yeah. Rodney Bonifield. He's the worst ever. Bruce Smith thinks most suspects helped Cooper. I know. That's the whole thing. Yeah. Nobody counts Vincent Peterson as a serious suspect. I mean, at least he was an actual criminal. I mean, Rekka was he had a robbery on his record. I mean, he was a real criminal. Good point there, Rye. Rekka didn't say any of this shit. His friend Carl said it and Recca nodded along. Yeah, you want to talk about leading the witness. You listen to that interview with, it's online. I think it's like $5 to buy. I forget what it's called, but the Recca interview is like, oof. Yeah, that's leading the witness, counselor. Objection. Now, Vincent Peterson is terrible, but what's the whole thing with Weber helping MLK's killer or whatever? So that is, again, Joe Weber. That is her. Joe Weber Forrest Gumped this case, right? Anything and everything she would Forrest Gump Dwayne into. So in the Walter Recca grift, in the Jack Kofel grift in the 70s, Kofel claimed that he was cellmates with James Earl Ray, the assassin of obviously MLK. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll let's see. I'll end with this. I mentioned the Jack Kofel grift a lot. So I'll end with this, folks. I'll read from my book, this piece on the Jack Kofel grift. Okay, here we go. And then I'll end with this. I'll stop with this. However, the late 70s would witness case agents spending considerable effort on two suspects. The second being Rackstraw, by the way. The first of these was Jack Bryant Kofel, a felon and con man who had died in June 1976 of alcohol-related illnesses. Back in 1949, Kofel was convicted of transporting a stolen vehicle and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. While serving his time at the U.S. Penitentiary in Leavenworth, Kofel became close friends with a fellow convict named James Brown. Ow! Upon their release in the mid-1950s, the two friends went their separate ways until 1974, when Kofel reconnected with Brown and told his old friend that he was D.B. Cooper. Kofel apparently wove an intriguing tale and eventually convinced Brown to take a road trip with him from Georgia to Oregon to help search for the ransom money that he claims he lost in the jump near Mount Hood. Way too far south. Also along for the ride was Brown's 19-year-old son, Byron. The group then spent the next several weeks looking near the base of the mountain to no avail. Brown claimed that one morning Kofel abruptly left the camp and he never saw him again. Following Kofel's death in 1976, the Browns began to try and to sell Kofel's story to Hollywood, and they received positive feedback from Dirk Summers, an independent producer and also a writer for the TV show Kojak. Summers asked them to get more corroboration that Kofel was Cooper. Byron Brown then contacted several of the key crew members from Flight 305, including Tina Mucklow and Florence Schaffner. He eventually caught Schaffner inside Denver International Airport, the headquarters of Flo's new employer, Frontier Airlines. He claimed that upon seeing a photo of Kofel, her mouth dropped open and she shouted, "It's him! My God, it's him!" Brown attempted to pressure her into signing an affidavit in front of a notary that she had positively ID'd Kofel as Cooper, but Schaffner refused. The FBI eventually got wind that Hollywood types and individuals with a commercial interest in the hijacking were snooping around contacting their key witnesses. When Schaffner was contacted by case agents, she explained that she did not positively ID Kofel, but did indicate to Brown that he possessed some of the traits that she remembered the hijacker having, such as a long face, thinning hair, and the right hairline. Schaffner also told agents that Summers offered her $5,000 for 10 days' work in Los Angeles assisting with their project. She indicated that Summers assured her that the other members of the flight crew had already signed on. This turned out to be a lie on Summers' part. To her credit, an uneasy Schaffner said that she was planning on contacting Mucklow and the others to check the validity of Summers' claims. When agents questioned Mucklow about her intentions with Summers, she advised them that the only information she had provided him were things already known in the public domain. She also admitted to showing him a scrapbook of newspaper clippings that she had been collecting throughout the years. Interestingly, Mucklow would proudly display the same scrapbook in the 2020 HBO documentary, The Mystery of D.B. Cooper. Case agents advised Mucklow and Schaffner that there was nothing illegal about them entering into a contract with production companies. However, this was immediately followed up with a not so subtle threat with agents explaining to the stewardesses that if the real Cooper were able to continue eluding justice thanks to confidential investigative information being leaked, that the leakers could be charged criminally. This warning, coupled with a growing unease that Schaffner was already feeling toward Summers, caused her to immediately back out of the arrangement. Though the Kofel grifters were unsuccessful in securing the cooperation of the crew, they would continue to try and promote their Kofel narrative through various forms of media for years to follow. In 1978, agents in Seattle got word that Mike Wallace was considering doing an expose on an episode of 60 Minutes, claiming that the FBI were covering up the identity of D.B. Cooper, aka Jack Kofel. The show was going to suggest that the Bureau had only eliminated Kofel because he was a close friend of J. Edgar Hoover's, and also because Kofel was somehow involved in the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. There is no evidence to suggest that Kofel was an associate of Hoover's, nor that he had anything to do with King's murder. Kofel was a man known to tell yarns. One of his favorites was that he had been a prison snitch for the FBI and that Hoover considered him a valuable asset. He also claimed to have been a cellmate of James Earl Ray and would brag that he had assisted with Ray's assassination of King. So, okay, I'll stop there. But there, that's Jack Kofel grift. It ends with following Kofel's elimination, case agents were immediately back at it again. Only this time they were investigating a much more realistic Cooper than the aged con man Kofel. Agents wrote that this new suspect, quote, appears to be fully capable of effecting the Norjack hijacking. Also, in contrast to Kofel, this individual would remain a notable suspect within the Cooper zeitgeist for decades to come. Born in 1943 as Robert Wesley Jones, this suspect became known by a different last name, Rackstraw. So there we go. Okay. That's it, folks. So my book, I don't know when my book is coming out. Well, when pigs fly, I guess. It's finished, but I need to get a publisher. Anyway, my book is 322 pages of goodness at this point. So we'll get there. Okay. That's it, folks. So anyway, thank you for watching, folks. We will, in a couple of weeks, I will do my next show when I did next. Planning on having a video coming out about James Roman, the mad doctor, the mad scientist doctor, next week. And the week after that, I think I'm going to have Bill Rollins to talk about Joe Lakic. And that'll be it. So good night, everybody. Thank you for watching. Bye.